Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for coming out. I am here with my wife, Jane. Where is she? There she is, way back there. And when you do this, we've been secret shopping you. You have to have a woman there because she sees your town totally different than us guys. And so we've been doing a lot of these over the last few years. And that's what we have been doing here since last Wednesday. So that's when we rolled into town. And we have secret shopped you. I didn't even meet Joelle until today. So we have got no input. We have come here just like any other visitor would. So she didn't say, when you're here, you have to do this, or you should see this, or anything. She just said, okay, here you go. So we had to pick where we're going to stay, where we're going to eat, everything. So we came just like everybody else. And as she said, we've done this in more than 2,750 communities. And we just did Jordan and all of Garfield County, and we've done down in Broadus. And matter of fact, in Montana, we've worked in a lot of places over the years. And we just did West Yellowstone, I think the year before last. And so we've worked in these. The ones in white are ones where we haven't done a big project, but about a month and a half ago or 2 months ago, I think it was in March, I actually came into Montana for 2 weeks and actually went and checked out all these towns, because a lot of these towns ended up being on, if you Google the prettiest towns in Montana, the best small towns in Montana, I'm going, okay, I got to make sure. And I'd been to Whitefish and Big and Red Lodge and all of the near the parks towns. And so it's great to go out and see some of the other ones. And so we spend a lot of time. And right now, as a matter of fact, when we're done here, I got to head down to Big Timber. And as a matter of fact, when I go there, I'm going to say, I got some things you can learn from Fort Benton. And so that'll be fun. When we do this assessment, first thing we do is marketing. We look at all that. Was it easy to find information about Fort Benton? Was it good enough to close the sale, saying, wow, I'd like to make a special trip there? We also looked at competitive analysis. How do you stack up? Because there's lots of places. If we live in Great Falls or Helena or anywhere, there's lots of places we should go. Why should we go to Fort Benton? But I'm going to really concentrate on what we call our on-site assessment. That is being here, boots on the ground, since last Wednesday. Signage, gateways, wayfinding, your overall appeal. I mean, all of these different things we're going to look at. Downtown shops, your eateries, amenities, restrooms, information, getting all of these things and looking at them. Now, to start this, our whole assignment is this. This is what our assignment is. What else could be done to make Fort Benton an even better place to live, work, and visit? That's the bottom line. So this isn't just about tourism. So we come in with that mindset. What else could we do to make it even better? And one thing we found out instantly is that you're already well on your way. As a matter of fact, you are light years. Remember, we've worked in 2,700 towns in 45 states, almost every Canadian province. And you're light years beyond probably almost every town of your size that we've ever worked in. I mean, that's amazing. But that being said, I have 80 suggestions for you. But because nobody's ever done, you can never rest on your laurels. But we were ultimately really surprised. And so when we do this, we wear 3 hats of, as a potential new resident, is this a place we'd want to live? Is this, would we establish a business here, or would we come here as a leisure visitor? Not somebody that's coming here to work, but just coming here because they want to come here and spend time. And so with that, this was funded, as Joellen said, by the state. The state is investing heavily into its rural communities. That's why we worked up in Jordan and Northeast. Here in Central, Broadus, down in Southeast, trying to help these communities really establish this. So before I dig in, I want to talk about tourism for just a minute. Because number one, it's the front door to your non-tourism economic development. So if you're looking for new business to come here, all these people, they're going to come here first as one of these people. They might be a site selector, they might be an investor, they might be state, federal employees, who knows? All these people come here and they're all visitors. So they're not just tourists. And number one on that list is visiting friends and family. So when friends and family visit you, where do you take them? What do you do? Most small towns I work in, they say, well, we take them over to Great Falls, somewhere else. And so that's number one. Number two is visitors come, they spend money and go home. We love that. Because this is all about import. You know what? If you live in Fort Benton, and heaven forbid you ever spend any money in Great Falls, that's leakage. If you leak out more as a community than you bring in, you go broke. Just like a business. And so tourism can help fill that gap, because I'm sure that when you need Costco or Sam's Club, I know where you're going. And so this helps fill that gap. That's a great thing about tourism. And the number one activity, not the reason they come, the number one activity once they arrive is shopping, dining, and entertainment in a pedestrian-friendly setting. Thank goodness you have that. That is where 80% of the non-lodging spending takes place. And by the way, I used to teach for Disney Institute. This is why there's a downtown Disney outside each of their parks, to get that 80%. And then number 5, retail shops and ears. Locals help you break even. Tourism can be your profit. And we love that. So as long as we can get the locals to help us break even, tourism can fill that gap. And of course, in tourism, the first rule is to get people to stop. The second thing is to get them to stay 2 hours. Did you know that when a visitor comes in town, if they spend 2 hours, spending on average doubles, just 2 hours? Because they'll be close to a lunch, or they'll be close to a dinner, or they'll be thirsty, or they're hungry, or they're ready for ice cream, whatever it is, spending doubles. But overnight, 3 times that of day visitors. So the goal is, I'd rather have you have half as many visitors spending twice as much time, wouldn't you? And that's the goals of tourism. So, checking out Fort Benton. Before we even left, the one call or the one email I sent to Joella was, could you send us your brochures? Send us whatever you've got. When we got this packet, I was impressed, because most of the little towns your size may have one brochure at the most. They don't have a visitor's guide done by the local paper. And of course, in Montana, everybody has their regional one. You can see Central Montana there. But you also had the museums do a good job. The Episcopal Church has 2 brochures. What's with all these other churches? Come on, you guys. No, I'm just kidding. But the stained glass windows, that was cool. And of course, out of all of this, we were really impressed. But the one that grabbed us the most was Shep. And I love that picture taken by Darcy Darlington of the kid hugging the dog. I got to tell you, when we got that brochure, our daughter was staying with us. And I read the story of Shep, and she just about broke down in tears. Because here's the scoop. You must, I know, just looking at that picture, I just went, oh my gosh. Just looking at that. But here's the thing. To win people over so they never forget you, there's 2 words: evoke emotion. And that, of all the things, I will never forget Shep as long as I live. It might not be that long, but I will never forget it. I mean, I wonder how many people have gone home and named their dog, or when they got a dog, named him Shep, because of that story. And so, what stood out to us of all those marketing materials was the story of Shep, number 1. Number 2 was the bloodiest block in the West. That really got our attention. I mean, you're going, what? Read on, And then, most inland port in the world. These things just really jumped out. And it's like, my gosh, when you look at the maps from the Gulf of America, all the way up to Fort Benton, I mean, it's astonishing. The steamboats and the lawlessness reading the stories about when they were going to serve warrants on 4 or 5 of your residents, they had to have a whole posse around the lawmen so they wouldn't get shot. I mean, just the Levee Trail, which I call it a history walk. I think it's your greatest attraction. We'll get into that. And then that the whole town is a National Historic Landmark. Missouri River Breaks National Monument. The birthplace of Montana was last on our list. Hate to say it. I think it's great, but those things evoked emotion. See what I mean? So in your marketing, I always want to grab people where they're going to go, wow, bloodiest block in the West, where is that? You know, and then when it comes to even stories like Shep, I will tell you that the one that the paper did in the visitor's guide is actually better than the one, no offense. It goes into more detail than the brochure that you see on the right. It goes into more detail because it talks about Shep actually following to the hospital and then from the hospital in a casket over to the train and then for 5.5 years. And so I thought, man, that story right there actually got me more than the brochure did. So just a FYI. So maybe the paper will say, well, yeah, I don't know who wrote it. The paper owns the copyright for the visitor's guide and for the articles in there. But I just thought that was just another little exclamation point. And so with that, you can use it, that's what I said, that's a number one. I'm going to explain that in a second. So what we did is we went through all these brochures and then we made a list of everything we needed to see. Normally in a town of your size, we'd get about 1/3 of the page and we ran out of room. And so we made this list. We did find out the museum in Northern Great Plains ended up being the Homestead Village and Hornaday Gallery. Then we saw River Adventures, and then we had Missouri River Outfitters, but they both had the same address. We knew to hook those two together. So we made a list from all of this. So this is before we even came here, because we had so many brochures and things to look at. So then we went, of course, to the Chamber website, located the banks of Missouri River, the Golden Triangle. I thought that was really great, but I thought this was really good. What they did about a great place to live, vacation destination, and upcoming events was outstanding. We even, when it said the schools here and your medical and your assisted living is all highly like 5-star rated and everything, we had to go online to see if this is really true or if this is just the Chamber of Commerce. USA, no, it was it, what publication was it, Jane? U.S., what's that? Yeah, U.S. News and World Report rated your schools number 8 in Montana. We have never seen that in a little town. I mean, that's amazing. And it did rate your health facilities and everything. So it's like, wow, they actually told us it's really true. We're impressed. And so, you know, we checked that out. Then we went on the state's website. We looked down. There's Fort Benton. We never did find that ship on the left. I don't know where that's at. Oh, downriver. Okay. We saw Shep, the hotel. We see the pharmacy. We never found a pharmacy. Is it still here? It is? We don't know where it's at. So somebody's going to have to tell us. Oh, so it's not, okay. Okay, it's under renovation. Okay. Okay, and so anyway, so we went there, we looked at all the different things. Most of them were like business listings, you know, but we went through there and saw what it says, okay. And then we went to Central Montana's website. We went for places to go. We put in the county, we selected, so you can see us going through this process. And then, of course, we looked for Fort Benton. It's got the population, the elevation, the current conditions. We did this last week. We're glad for that. And then it talked about it. And so these are all the resources that people will go to. But even beyond this, we actually went over to Google because you know what? Nowadays, you can plan a whole trip without even leaving Google. Love them or hate them, Google's where it's at. Their ratings and everything. So I typed in floating the Missouri River in Fort Benton, Montana. And of course now it has AI, gives you a whole thing. You know, it says floating the Missouri River offers a relaxed scenic experience suitable for all skill levels. And it even has Missouri River Outfitters there for rentals. It has day trips, public access points and everything. So, and I don't know if all this stuff is correct, but what happens is Google searches the Chamber's website, the town's websites, the county. It searches Montana's website, Central Montana, and then it comes up with these things. And they'll talk about, you know, it's generally calm, but, you know, looking at that current, I'll bet it's not so easy. The other thing I wanted to point out is on TripAdvisor, and I'm going to go back to this for just a second. So in TripAdvisor, one thing that you need to do is start populating it, because we've got these attractions, things to do, but Citadel Rock, there's no photos. Ryder the Purple Sage, we got his head, Montgomery Cliff's head cut off. Old Fort Park, let's see, we got that. We've got, keep going down. And I'm just scrolling down. We got the courthouse in there. We've got the Benton, and then we got the Missouri River. There's not one single photo. And then we've got a lot of churches. The Agricultural Center, not one single photo. Signal Point Golf Club, not one single photo. And it's all free. So, and I'm giving Joel and all the photography we took, but you might do some more. We got Eric here who does video, but we need to start populating his website. It's free. TripAdvisor next to Google is the second most visited travel website, and it's free to add photos and information there. And so that's one thing you could do there. And by the way, that's number 2. And with these numbers, everything you're seeing tonight is a suggestion. There's no recommendations. Because I think it would be kind of inappropriate for me to come into Fort Benton and say, here's what you should do, Fort Benton, when I've never talked to you first. So we call these suggestions. You say, ooh, we like that suggestion. Some of these you may already be working on. Well, we don't know that because this is our first time here and we haven't talked to anybody. But if so, then you've been validated for working on it. So there's number 2 for you out of this list. You know, we also looked at things to do in Fort Benton. We looked at the history of Fort Benton, you know, the populations, how big the area is. And we go through Google. You can plan a whole trip just on Google without doing much. More things to do. So you see Upper Missouri River guides. And so sometimes people get Missouri River Outfitters. I believe both of those are the same place. They're not. They are different. Okay. But we were confused because there was like 4 or 5 different names, but we weren't sure which ones were which. And so anyway, not sure. And by the way, some of these might not even be right in Fort Benton. We didn't go through that. But there's your, you know, the attention. There's Upper Missouri River Guides, 5 stars, all their information. And so those are the Google listings. And by the way, Google listings are always free. So claim your Google listing if you haven't. So for instance, the Montana Agricultural Center says it opens each day at noon, right now in May. And so, but it's, and as a matter of fact, it says it's open right now because somebody is not going in there and updating their Google profile. So we expected the Agricultural Museum to be open since it said it was open every day. And you know the answer to that. But those are why we look at these things, you know, and why it's so important to claim that listing and to update it when it's the off season, the peak season, when you're open, when you're not open. And so Bee Social Bar opens at 11 a.m. tomorrow. It's closed right now. I mean, it's got reviews. And by the way, you can respond to reviews in Google. It doesn't cost anything. But these are all the things we were doing before we even got here. And so we really looked at all these things. So the Agricultural Center, just to clear you down there, I said, here's the hours. There's what we did. So it's 10:30 to 4:30, Monday through Saturday. And it says suggest new hours, but somebody's not suggesting the new hours of actually when it will be open, those hours, and what days of the week. So we did look at those kinds of things, and we look at the reviews are outstanding, 4.8 out of 5. We're a little bit confused over the Agricultural Museum because there's so many different names. You know, there's the gallery, there's the Agricultural Museum, there's the what is it, the Northern Plains Museum. And so some of these things, when you start giving us more names, we start getting, is this all the same place? Or do they go by different names? Or what's that? Yeah, we ended up with 4 different names. And we know there's 3 places in there, yeah. And I will talk about that. So for everybody, this is not just for them, but for everybody, claim your Google listing. It's free. It's pretty easy to do. And then it will give you all this information. And there's even, you just say, claim your Google listing. It'll tell you step by step how to do it. You could even, we've even worked in towns where some high school students will say, for a class, they get credits to work with local nonprofits and businesses to help them get their listings, because we're planning our trips before we get here, even if it's just the day before. So we did all that research, we made our list, and then we decided we're coming out. And so we headed out to Fort Benton last Wednesday. And when we got here, first thing I wanted to tell you is this. The peak months for boomers and Gen Xers is April, May, September, and October. These 2 groups spend more on tourism than all the other age groups combined. And yet you're closed these months. So that's something I just want you to keep. The days of Memorial Day to Labor Day ended 25 years ago. So you've got to kick that habit. And I know that, we got workers and volunteers and everything that goes with it. But I just want you to keep that in the back of your mind. Now, when I was talking to Joellen about setting this up, we could have put it off, but we wanted to come here in May because for people our age and people even younger than us, like our daughter's age, this is the month when they want to come here. So we wanted to come here before you get into your peak season, okay, on purpose. So we drove out, we used our navigation system, we saw this, that is excellent. Really, really liked it. However, it says 3 exits. First of all, our navigation system took us to the first exit, but the sign told us to take the second exit. But by the time we got to the third exit, there were billboards selling us on going to Havre. Why don't you get people to take the first 2 exits before somebody tries to sell us on keep going and going the roundabout way? So if it was me, I'd probably change it the next 2 exits, even though you can take the next 3 exits. Just as suggestions. And I think your best first impressions are these first 2 exits. So while we're driving in, we did see the scenic turnout. We did go there. We stopped there. The views are outstanding there. I just thought this would be a great place to have a little brochure holder that's going to have a brochure that we want you to create called The Very Best of Fort Benton. We'll get to that in a while. And so I thought, man, once we're there, this is a perfect place to sell us on coming down the hill. So I thought, I don't know who owns it. I don't know if Montana Department of Transportation owns it, if the county owns it. I don't know who owns it. But whoever owns it, say, hey, if we help you maintain it, could we put a brochure rack? Could we just mount one of those or 2 of those in there, put it on a post, and put a new brochure that we're going to create in that rack? Because this is a great spot. It talks about the steamboat navigation there. It talks about Fort Benton. It's just a great viewpoint. This was a great introduction. Even though we can't really see the town, we can still get an idea of the Missouri River and the landscape and all of those things. So what a great introduction. So we're not even in Fort Benton yet, and we're already going, this is pretty cool. This is already awesome. But then I thought, as we come down the highway, wouldn't it be great if there was, even though it says Fort Benton 3 miles, our navigation system told us to turn right here, which is what we did. But I thought, wouldn't it be great here at the top of the hill at both those exits if you had a big sign? Now, tomorrow we have to head down to Big Timber, and they're going to see this next slide after you see it. They haven't even seen this. But I thought, if you could do something like this for Fort Benton up there that really said something, and it doesn't have to look just like that. That's the one that we're recommending for Big Timber. But for you, it could be Fort Benton. You see the bloodiest block in the West, or walk the Levee Trail, or one little teaser there to pull us down the hill more than just a highway sign. I think it would be a great marquee. Once we came down that hill, I see why they tell us to go to the next exit, because we did go through there. I'm really glad we didn't have an RV. And, but we thought, wow, that's, I mean, in a way it was kind of novel, you know. And then, but we thought, even coming down to the next exit, there are, you know, Historic Point, 1.5 mile, you know, Lewis and Clark State Memorial. I thought that was great, but still, I'd like to have another sign there. Just 2 signs that just say Fort Benton that just really jump out at you. You could make them look like steamship or whatever. I mean, you know, Big Timber looks like Timbers because that's the namesake. Once we started coming down the hill, we want to thank the First Christian Church for welcoming us. We saw these signs in 2 or 3 locations, and we thought they were great because that was our first welcome. And everywhere where we saw the sign, it was a good first impression. It wasn't at some junkyard or something. They were in nice locations. We did see coming into town another direction, this one. Now I have to tell you, when I took this picture, I had to get it just right so the building behind it would form a backdrop, because I could not read the lettering without the white behind it. So I thought, you know what they should do? You know what you should do is I would get a white, this is it from the backside, I'd get a white piece of plywood, paint it white, of course, make sure it's, you know, what do they call it, water-resistant wood, and then put that on the backdrop, and then the letters will pop, because it was really hard to read unless you had that building right in the right spot when you're driving down the hill. And so there you go. That way you could see that. So, but once again, nice lettering. We did see the new subdivision. And that is when we were doing our research, we said, are there places to live? No. Are there houses for sale? Hardly any. I mean, if any. I mean, there's only 1 or 2 buildings for sale. We went, wow, this place is really short. And as we talked to people in town, they said they can't wait for that to open up. And so anyway, I was glad to see that you got some new housing coming in. But right here, I thought, wouldn't it be nice if they did a sign that said coming soon, like a 4x8 sheet of plywood or something that just says the name of the subdivision, how many houses are going to be there, what the starting prices are going to be. I mean, maybe they're already sold. Are they already sold out? Okay, in that case, it makes sense. Don't say anything. What's that? Oh, there are still lots for sale. In that case, because you know what you do when you put that sign, it says, it's like, invite us back. Let us know as it's developing. You know, opening in you know, May of 2026, whenever the first houses are going to be built, whenever that is. But we always say, always invite us back. If you have lots for sale, why not try to sell them now? And so that's just another suggestion for you. And when we came into downtown, we just went, now this is really cute. You want to know the first thing, I got to tell you, the very first thing we did is went, well, we got to go down Main Street. It's Main Street. Yeah, it didn't work out very well. We're going, oh man, the confectionary's already gone. We got auto repair. The confectionery, by the way, is in the wrong location. It was. And so we went down Main Street, and then we thought, yeah, I wonder what's down towards the ridge. So we came down, when we found Front Street, we go, okay, here it is. And we were really, really impressed. Really pretty, really a nice downtown, a really great first impression, particularly the fact that your riverfront was not full of buildings. I mean, they're across the street. We loved the fact that you had this trail. To us, that just stood out like you couldn't believe. It just was like, wow, this is so nice. Picnic tables, benches, seating areas. And the other thing that really stood out, you know how good your town smells? I mean, by the way, we live in Spokane, which is called the Lilac City. You have more lilacs here than we have in all of Spokane. It's really, I mean, I just thought you're Montana's lilac capital. I mean, it's fantastic. The whole town smells great. And of course, for us, we stayed at a B&B because, and the reason we did is because we have, you know, scanners and printers, and, you know, we're doing photography and 2 computers and all of this. And so we had to walk a whole long ways for this presentation tonight. This is right across the street. And so we didn't even realize that when we booked the Airbnb. So that's that's where we've been holed up this week. And you know, it was so great. We got here on Wednesday. So that night we started driving around. After that, we realized everything's 2 blocks away. Why not walk? See, but it took us that little bit of time to get that. So, and here was the thing. The people that own the Airbnb sent us a note or a text that said, by the way, the back door is unlocked. This is while we were driving out. And you know what our first comment was? I already love this town. Now, once we got here, they said, it's okay to leave your doors unlocked except for the last week of June. Right? Am I right? Yeah. Said you get kind of overrun that week. But, so we thought that was really cool. And we said, oh, we already love this place. So once we got here, we checked in, unloaded all our gear and went, let's go find some place to eat. And the second we saw the courtyard, we were just like, oh my gosh, this place is so fantastic. So we did, so we went over there. We did, and there's my first comment. Now, doing 2,750 cities and towns over all these years, you know how many times we said, I could easily live here? Hardly any. But we said it in Fort Benton. And so we went to the public house, and the guy, see him right back there? I can't remember his name. Right there was a hoot. He was a crack up. He's the first person we met, you know. I mean, food was excellent. The service was great. He came over to our table, pulled up a chair and sat down with us and said, well, what would you like to have tonight? And he had to explain some of the barbecue that they do that we hadn't heard of. And, but it was really a nice experience. I mean, we've been in town now for like 3 hours. And so after we ate, which was really good, we went for a walk along the trail. And when we saw all of these signages along the trails, you know, incredible, so serene, you know, our whole word for Fort Benton was tranquil. It was so tranquil. And so I'm sitting there going, how do we increase tourism without getting rid of this, which I'm sure you all love? I mean, you know, it's so serene. It was so peaceful. And we walked up and down this trail, and we knew that the Levee Trail, we walked the entire distance of it from what we knew on Wednesday, which was from the visitor center to the Lewis and Clark Memorial. There was nothing that told us it was any longer than that. So that's what we knew on Wednesday. But we walked that up and down that, and we just thought that was really great, and it was really pretty. I mean, just everything. And while we're on the trail, we met Tori. Does anybody know who Tori is? Well, Tori she wasn't walking her dog. She was just walking down the trail. We're walking down the trail with a big camera. She stopped us. She was listening to music. And she stopped us. She goes, you know, you guys are you from out of town? Where are you from? So we had a conversation with her. She was so friendly. She goes, oh, make sure you do this. Make sure you do that. And she was just so nice. I'm going, oh my gosh, we've met like 2 people here. Now we know them by name, you know, and at least her. And so we thought, yeah, that was great. So that was a nice introduction that somebody would just stop us on the trail and say hi. And she lives here. And so that was great. So we went back, and the next day we got up and we did start to dig in. And this is so well written. It's good information. I'm so glad you put in the population, the county area, how many, 1.3 people per square mile. I went, wow, that's amazing. Elevation, 2,600 feet. It's just really well written and immediately made us feel well at home. And so, you know, and thank you for the welcome. I mean, it was just great. Once we started digging in, we went over to Wake Up Coffee, which was highly rated. It's a beautiful building. So we went in there, and that is where we had breakfast. And I mean, I just love the decor. I love their logo. It was just really great. And so far I'm going, what am I going to tell these people to do? They're already doing everything right. And after breakfast, we did walk across the street. We thought, now this could use a little bit of help. You know, because because one of our first questions, does it ever flood? Has it ever flooded? How high did it get? I mean, this is the Missouri River. And there was that little placard right there that shows the high water mark. It looks like it didn't quite get up to the street. I'm not too sure. But there was really no information. So I thought if there was one thing you could do, I would take and fix that. I would make that so it stands out a little bit more. Maybe it was on one of the signs. I don't remember seeing that. We did hear about the bridge, how it used to be a cantilever bridge, I think, and how it got washed out. But we thought that was the one thing you could do. And then, of course, we did see the Fort Benton Bridge, which we did go and walk across. And I just thought, what you should do is, I don't know how far it is across the bridge and back, but all of us, most of us now are on health. We want to get healthier. So I thought, well, the walk across the bridge is how far? And how far is the Levee Trail? Maybe we can make this, if it's, I don't know how far it is. If it's a 1/4 mile round trip, I'm not sure, whatever that is. But I thought you could actually turn this trail into, besides being an attraction and nice walking area, it could actually be part of somebody's fitness routine. Because we did see people walking their dogs up and down the trail and across the bridge. We would love to see even more picnic tables and benches on there. I think it'd be really cool. I know, now the birds, are those starlings by chance? With the kind of fluorescent, is that what they are? We saw all the birds all over the place. As a matter of fact, we had to watch where we walked on the bridge. But every time we would go across there, there'd be somebody sitting there taking a picture, just sitting there listening to music, whatever it is. And from the bridge, we did see the Union Grand, which is absolutely stunning. And we couldn't wait. As a matter of fact, as soon as we walked off the bridge, we went over there to make reservations for dinner. But while we're on the trail, we did go over, we saw the visitor center, the first fire engine house, read the information. You have public restrooms. They were open. They were clean. We were really impressed. However, a couple of days, and we saw the little picnic area. A couple of days later, we saw there was a thing in the middle that kind of opens up and you can kind of look into an old store. That was closed where the bike racks are there. That was closed, but I didn't know if it was supposed to be open or closed or whatever. We kind of looked in a little bit when we saw it. Now, the big challenge was that it was closed. And the good news is, though, that I would never use the word closed. Instead of saying closed says go away. If you put we will be open Memorial Day through Labor Day, whatever it is, tell us when you'll be open, because then it's an invitation to come back. Because we don't know if you're going to be permanently closed, if you're just closed for the day. We went there every single day to see if it was going to be open. But in fairness, there was the visitor's guide there. The other brochure rack, though, was empty. And I thought, boy, we could add like Shep's Story or one of the other brochures in there, the one that Chamber does. But I would keep it stocked. But that was good. So I was glad that you see that. But it did say that we'd be back at 10 o'clock. And we kept waiting. 10, nobody showed up. 11, nobody, So I'd probably get rid of that little "will be back" sign, since I think it's closed until the season, till it comes around. This is part of like getting back to the, getting rid of the Memorial Day to Labor Day mindset. Because your big spenders are here right now, and they're here in April, May, September, October. And so I will say one thing, though, that Joellen sent me an email, and she said, if you would like us to open the visitor center for you or have any of the museums open, let me know. We can make arrangements. And I said, no, I want to come. We said no because we wanted to be like any other visitor coming here in the middle of May for Mother's Day, whatever it is. And so we turned her down on that. But that was really nice that she made that offer. So we kept walking. We love the stories. You are a city of fantastic storytellers. So whoever wrote these boards, wrote these stories, did an excellent, excellent job. They were the highlight of our visits. As a matter of fact, I would say the greatest asset in Fort Benton is the Levee Trail. Because it's a museum that's open year-round. It's scenic. It's pretty. It's right in the middle of your spending district. Everything about it, we could not find a fault with the Levee Trail. I mean, we did think maybe it should be called something like a scallywag trail or something that would get more attention, you know what I mean? But even just Levee Trail, because it's so serene and tranquil. I mean, I probably took pictures of, the bloodiest block in the West when you talk about great storytelling was incredible. Stay in the center of the street and keep your mouth shut. I mean, see, I didn't even have to read that there. I have that memorized. I thought that was fantastic. Just really well written, really got us endeared into the community. There is a directory right there. It tells about the firehouse. I mean, I could keep going on and on. And what's going to happen now is all these places that I work, I'm going to be talking about Fort Benton, Montana. Because what you do is amazing. I wish I could say that everywhere. And so just your views, there I keep saying tranquil and serene. It was just so nice. And then you had these little things like the selfie spot. I thought, well, that's really cool. So we did try it. And so we read the instructions and everything. We thought that was a pretty cool idea. And then we got the selfie. But the challenge is I'm selling my phone because I could not find the camera. Is it the same camera that points to the hotel and back? I don't know if it swivels. Okay. And so I'm on my phone trying to figure it out and snap. So we got that. The challenge with it, and you can see the guys on the bikes are waiting. And the challenge with it is you're too far away for it to be the kind of selfie you'd post on Instagram or Facebook or anything. So it's a little bit far away, but I thought it was a really cool idea. And we did go over to the hotel. And the challenges with the selfie in front of the hotel, it's a great commercial for the Grand Union. But they're going to say, who are those two people standing in front of that door? But anyway, I just thought it was a really cool idea. It worked. We got the photos. They were pretty easy. But, I'd probably use a selfie stick just because then you could do more of a close-up. But I thought that was a really cool way to promote the chamber, promote the hotel, Outback Wireless, you name it. And, of course, we could not spend time without seeing Shep. And so we did our own set of selfies there, for Chef with that. And so everywhere we went, I will say that some of your signs, like this one here, the material that they're printed on is starting to come. Some of the signs were pretty hard to read. So I think, in a budget might be replacing some of those panels because the background is starting to crack and everything. At first, I thought that was just part of the design of it to make it look historic. But we did go over to the Grand Union. We did walk in and we made reservations for Saturday night for Mother's Day. We're doing an early Mother's Day for my wife. And we walked in there and it's stunningly beautiful. And we walked in and instantly we met Arnie. And she came out and she goes, would you guys like, I said, well, we'd like to make a reservation. So she took our reservation, would you like a tour? I'm going, wow, she offered us a tour. So she took us around through the hotel, showed us the picture, told us the history and everything. And by now we are like, are there any houses available? We really were falling in love with the town quickly. And she did say, then she said her son has the Bee Social Club across the street. And so we said, okay, we're going to have to go over there and eat. Normally we probably would eat in a bowling alley, but she goes, well, no, it's kind of a bar and a bowling alley. And so that was really cool. And so we did talk to her for a bit and got the tour and the history of the hotel. She did a fantastic job. And then, we thought, well, let's go find the Golden Triangle Brew Company. So we saw that there, and I'm assuming it's gone. Okay, so it didn't was it in that building at some point? Okay, so we saw that on the side, but then we also saw, so we went up to the door, and it, of course, was totally locked. We looked in kind of a window where you could kind of see in there. It was just disheveled. But then around the side, there's this thing called Landmark. I don't know what it is, what they do, but it says open. So we thought it would be open to the public. So we opened the door and it's like a disheveled office. What is Landmark? Oh, that's your wireless provider. Okay. So we go, well, this is definitely not the brew house. And so we just kind of quietly shut the door and went, okay, I'm not sure what that was all about. And so, but this is us just trying to get to know the community. And so if it's open to the public, know what you sell or, because we had no idea what Landmark is. I mean, we've seen a series of theaters called Landmark Theaters, and we didn't know. We did go over to the Episcopal Church, but, we don't know if it's open to the public. Can you go in and see the stained glass? Do you have to call somebody? It tells the kind of the history. We had 2 brochures promoting this, but we don't know when it's open or if it's ever open, other than maybe on Sundays. And so it's a cute little church. We loved it. It's got the history of the church there, but we weren't sure if and when we could go in or if there was somebody you could call. So if there is, you can say, well, hey, we're open on Saturdays and Sundays. We have volunteers. Maybe it's open Memorial Day. Maybe it's just only open on Sunday. And in that case, I'd probably put a little sign out there and said, if you'd like to see the stained glass windows, our services are every Sunday morning at such and such time. Invite us back. Always invite us back. As we're working around, we did see the eagle. And my first thing is, wow, we got to put that downtown somewhere. Right now it's sitting on a trailer, but I thought, and I don't know where it's going to end up or if that's where it's going to stay or anything, but it is a really cool sculpture that we thought that should be in the middle of something, somewhere. Is there a story behind that? Oh, you think it's for sale? It's really cool. Wow, maybe if the local guy by the way, this sculpture was locally done, it's for sale, put a little sign on it. We want people to do well. I'd love that. It's just really cool. I thought, wow, we need to put that on display. And of course, we did see City Hall. Didn't mean to go through it so fast. And somebody's going to work there, right there you can see. But while we were near this intersection, it finally dawned on us that this is like a highway across here. We weren't ready for that. We're like standing in the street taking a picture of the eagle, also these cars and trucks. Because we were, in Fort Benton, all the streets are like, they're stop signs. People are going 15, 20 miles an hour for the most part. And then all of a sudden people were cruising through there. And so I thought if there was one intersection in town where you needed crosswalks, I'd put it right here. So we don't get caught off guard. As visitors, we're standing in the streets, and so I just drew these white lines on there to show you how it could be on all 4 sides. Just create a crosswalk at this one intersection. And there's a cool thing you could do. This is called street print. It's a Duratherm process. There are no paver stones there. That is stamped into the asphalt. But it looks historic. It looks like paver stones. And they can stamp it. They stamp it right in the car. You can drive on it with chains. It lasts like 25 years. And it's like $8 a square foot. And all of these things. I even thought, couldn't it be cool if you could stamp the Levee Trail so it looked like it was stone, like it was bricks, paver stones. And so we kept thinking, wow. And so Duratherm, if you go online, you can see how it all works. They have brochures over it. And by the way, the people that serve you are in Eastern Washington, or now they're in Southern Washington, but they do all kinds of designs, and it's just a way to do. And I don't think you need crosswalks all throughout downtown. First of all, we J-rocked constantly, and I don't know anybody that walked over to the nearest intersection to cross the street. Because downtown, you have to look out for cars coming, but overall it was really easy. But I thought, man, if you could do this process like this, I even thought, could you do that on the trail even? It's just stamped right in the asphalt. It would just make it. Remember, the Levee Trail we think, is your best year-round attraction. There's no season when it's not an attraction. And people are walking it morning, noon, and night. And so we thought, man, if that was all stamped so it looked like, so it really fit the historic nature, that might be an idea. And it's just stamped right into the asphalt. So I thought that would be a cool idea. So that'd be a great candidate as well. We read the stories, the drowning of the governor, it's still kind of a mystery. We walked over to the Mandan, and on the weekends, the guys are working there, and they were all so friendly. Everybody we talked to was just really friendly, just really, really great guys. I just thought that was really awesome what they're doing there. And of course, we did make it to the statue and saw the Lewis and Clark timeline. And back in 2005, when they did the bicentennial of Lewis and Clark, we worked the whole trail in Washington State, along the Columbia River. And so it was great to see this, and it was really well done, well written. And then, of course, on and on. And one thing that would really touch us, even though this is about the river, there was a little note there about the community losing one of its own. And to us, it just was really touching. We didn't say, well, this is supposed to be about the river. We didn't. We said, well, we want to thank, so-and-so that passed away. And I just thought that was really touching in a small community to see that. It would have been nice if here there was some information about going on the river. Because if we were to bring kayaks and go on the river, do we even dare to ever go upriver? Or is there a pull out and a put in? There was no, granted you have outfitters here that could help us through that. But I thought, what about people that just show up with kayaks? Is there a place they should put in, a place they pull out? There was really no information about actually being on the river or fishing on the river. There was a little bit of information about the river and the National Monument, Fort Benton, and about playing it safe. But there was really no information about being on the river itself. And so we thought this would be a good place to at least tell us, can we go on the river? And what are we risking? As we're walking around downtown, we see the tennis courts. And there's one thing you need to know is that visitors like us, we see things different than you. So for instance, somebody fairly recently painted the red rails on the grandstands right there. The tennis courts were spotless. Those are things we notice that you might just go, yeah, so somebody cleaned the tennis courts or whatever. But to us, it said this community really cares about its assets. I mean, for a town of 1,500 people, we were just so impressed with your assets. I mean, the pool, granted, it's not open yet, and I get it. I mean, somebody told us it froze like 5 days ago. Out where we live, you wait till Mother's Day and then you can plant stuff. And we understand here, you got to wait a little later. But still, looked like a great asset. The playground also looked great. I mean, the Veterans Memorial, everywhere we went, things looked really fantastic. When we went over to the museum, we thought right there on that wall would be a good place to have a brochure. This museum of the Upper Missouri, right next to the fort. And we thought if we can put a brochure rack there, something, for these three, maybe we do we'll put the very best of guide. I'm going to tell you about that. And then maybe those two brochures that talk about the museums, something like this. I saw this in North Platte, Nebraska. A local person made this. But you can do something like that, or you could go online. I mean, this here is $100. And it's weatherproof, and it can hold 3 different brochures, just like we talked about. Would be a great way. That way your museum is always working. Remember, the visitor centers, we were lucky that Joellen sent us brochures ahead of time. If nobody had sent us brochures ahead of time, we wouldn't have had near the information we needed. So by having a little rack like that with there, so we'd come there, we pull it out and say, when we're open, we would get those brochures. That way your visitor information is always working 24/7. Now, we're going to open in May, and today is May 12th, and it is May, and we're still not open. And so when you say we're open in May, can you tell us, is it Memorial Day? Is it the end of May? Instead, so I'm glad they said we're close to the season, we're opening in May of 2025, but it'd be really nice to know when in May you're opening. And I hope you'll consider opening earlier, just on the weekends for like Mother's Day and some of these weekends, if you can. I understand getting volunteers and staff and all those things is not so easy. But the other thing that we were hoping for, and the reason we didn't take Joellen up on us calling or her opening it up, we assumed there would be a number on the door to call if we wanted a tour. And we've seen that in Broadus, we saw it in Jordan, we saw it everywhere we've seen museums. There was always a number you could call. And they would put with it, by the way, we might not be available for your timeline, but at least give us a call and maybe we can work something out so that you have a chance to go in, particularly if you're here for a couple of days. So if we have a day's notice. So that would be a really nice thing to do if you can. So we were a little disappointed we couldn't go in, but there was good information. And the nice thing about Fort Benton is you can't go anywhere without learning about the history. So it's not like the museums have to be open for you to learn about the town. It's just a nice addition. It would keep us here longer. And so here it is, Old Fort Benton. So we did walk over to Old Fort Benton. Some of the signs like this one here, by the way, that's out of focus. My camera couldn't focus it, but I couldn't really read it because the sign is so fractured up. So we really couldn't read that, but we did figure out that's a fur press in the back behind the sign. So that was interesting learning about that. But when we walked over to the fort, we see these doors, but there's no signs. I don't know, we don't know if the fort is ever actually open or if you just look at it from the outside, because there was nothing that said that the fort was ever open. All it said, there's cameras. And so we walked around there and said, well, maybe there's another entrance. And so, could there be signage? So we weren't too sure. We walked all around the back. We could see a lot of construction going. And right here we thought, wouldn't it be great if you had one of those signs that said coming soon, opening the fall of 2025 or whenever it is, always invite us back. It's so much cheaper to invite people back than to say, see you later, sorry, we're not done. But add a sign there that just say, here's what we're doing. And I'm sure that's probably one of the original walls of the fort, is my guess. But just having information, we didn't know whether we should step through the construction and walk through there. We weren't sure what the rules were, and there was no information for us to find out. And so we kept walking around it. We came over here and I went, aha, there it is. But there wasn't. It was just historical information, which is good. And so is the fort actually ever open? It is. And do you go through those big front doors usually? Usually go, okay, so that's where on those big doors you say, by the way, the entrance to the fort when it's open is around the left side. Let us know where it is. Because we walked all the way around it, which by the way wasn't a bad experience. Beautiful parks there. And so it's nice, the picnic tables, and told a lot of the history, just really great. We did see this, and what was nice about this, the gate is propped open with a brick there, and it says visitors welcome. Yet, we went up, and of course, it's padlocked. And so we don't know why the gate was held open. And maybe we should close the gate until that is actually open. And by the way, is that actually open like the rest of the museums? Oh, it is. Okay. And so, but at least, the good news is we still get learning about it because every one of these places has signage about it. But we saw people from all over the country, like these folks that actually live in Montana quite a ways, that say, oh yeah, we've been coming here to Fort Benton. Every time they have friends and family, they live further than Hoover, and they come here with their friends and family. That's where they take them. And so, but successful tourism, if right now, your industries in Fort Benton, according to the web, we know how accurate everything is on the web, says your number one is agriculture, wheat primarily. Then we saw hemp products. Then we saw service industry, which is hospitals, schools, sheriff's department, all of the government agencies and social and services. And then number 4 was tourism. If you'd like to beef tourism up so it's not number 4 on your list, you need 8 months of tourism, not 3. Not June, July, August. You need 8 months. You could do 8 months in Fort Benton if you have the volunteers. Just the levee trail is open year round, so you already have that. The hotel is open year round. You've already got a lot of things there. But just remember that we need 8 months. What do we do to extend it 8 months? And even if you just did it on weekends for those, what we call the shoulder seasons, April, May, September, just do the weekends. While we're downtown, we did see Visit Us, Missouri River Breaks Interpretive Center. We thought that was a good teaser because we had no idea at this point where it was at. But I kept thinking, wow, that would be such a cool place for a restaurant. You roll up those big garage doors and you could have indoor, outdoor patio dining there. I mean, I don't know what's in there or what it used to be or anything, but this is in Rapid City, South Dakota. That's a place called Firehouse Brewing Company. And those are big got big garage doors that roll up and down in there. But during the summer, they just roll it up and you kind of have indoor, outdoor dining. I thought that would be really cool there. So just an idea. Just reminded me of that. So we did go over to Be Social. And when we went to Be Social, there was Tori. That's where she works. So now we knew where Tori worked. And she goes, hey, I remember you. And I was like, yeah, I feel like we already live here. And so we had lunch there. It was great. Nice. I love all the ceiling. Look at this. Even the ceiling is a gallery. Which was pretty fun. We also saw the mural on the side of the freeze, and what was really cool, it said, opening this Saturday. We went right on. Somebody's doing something before Memorial Day. And it was busy. And of course, one other thing I want to tell all the retailers, no more than 4 posters on a window. At the grocery store, there was about 30, if you count the posters around the other side. There's almost 20 here. What happens is, number one, and by the way, I did it because our poster wasn't up there, so I got really mad. No, I didn't. I didn't care. They have no place to put it. But the point is, when there's more than 4 posters in the window, people tend to ignore them all. So if you have people coming in and say, would you put this poster up because Roger's coming into town? Say, okay, which one am I going to take down? No more than 4. Just a general rule for retailers. You want your windows to pull people in your door. And I understand having a bulletin board and being a community bulletin board. I understand what they're doing and everything. But the challenge is, how many of you have gone up to that window and read all 14 of those? Go ahead, raise your hands. Come on, all at once. 1. See what I mean? Just too many. So, very nice people, by the way, at the grocery store. They do a great job. For dinner, we went over to the clubhouse. And we had a good time there. There was our guy waiting on us. The next day, he was out walking his dog. And I said, hey, I know you, you know. And so it was just really nice. So we ate dinner there. And then, of course, we had to go back over after dinner and, walk the Levee Trail again. At this point, we still think it's from the Shep Memorial to Lewis and Clark. So we walked it back and forth a couple of times. And then we did see this is the Whoop Up trail marker. We couldn't read it. And so if there's ever a chance, I don't know how you clean that. I don't know if it's made out of bronze or brass or whatever, but it was very, very difficult to read. I even went into Photoshop and tried to make it so the letters would stand out so I could read it on this slide, and it was still very difficult. And so that's something that if it's possible, we might do that. We did, of course, get pictures of, Montgomery Cliff. Is that right? Did I get that right? Oh, yeah, George Montgomery, sorry. George Montgomery, the Riders of the Purple Stage, great story there, tell the story. I was glad his family put it there. That's really cool. And then, of course, we did walk across the bridge because we went, I wonder where it goes. And I thought, man, over there, we could do, maybe say more to explore with a map of the entire trail. It would be a good map that you say, by the way, you walked across the bridge. And so I thought you could do, signage. Something, with more to explore. Since we're over here, put a sign there that says, hey, while you're in town, take a couple minutes and look at all these different things, like you did with the museums. In this case, this is what we thought. So we did see, so then we saw that, well, wait a second, maybe it does go, I think the Shep Memorial's there. And then I said, well, maybe it does go, because we start seeing up by is it an apartment complex? We saw it looked like there was more trail there. Weren't sure how it connected or anything. But then we started saying, well, maybe this trail's a little longer than we think. And there is this, like on Google Maps and Apple Maps, or this little thing right here, but this doesn't line up with the trail at all. So we didn't know whether that was a county line, what it was. It kept going all the way. It looked like we could hike all the way up the river to the Citadel or whatever, according to that line. But we did walk it. We did see the Canadian goose are coming back. Is that a problem? Usually is with most communities. And we did see a lot of garbage cans, but you know what? I'd replace these with decorative trash cans. I understand they hold more and everything, but it just makes your town look trashy. Okay, lousy pun, I know. But I just thought, come on, do a night. I mean, this is a world-class destination. And so putting out those, at first we thought, oh, the Republic Services must be coming today to pick up the trash. But they never came the whole time we were here. Well, if I was you as a town, I would get like these. The tops lift off. This is like $800, so you could get like 6 of these. The top lifts off and then the bags come out. They have the top over it, so they're fairly bird-proof. Raccoon stuff don't get in them, but I mean, it doesn't have to be this exact one, but there are all different kinds of alternatives. But putting out those trash cans, I thought, come on, you guys. This is a great, fantastic town. Don't do that. I just thought that was a cheap way out of taking care of a situation. Go ahead. Okay.
And they will pick up the dumpsters that they give us. They won't pick up anything else. And they want those dumpsters where they are so their drivers don't have to get out of the vehicle.
Okay.
Something we have spent an enormous amount of time trying to troubleshoot.
So yeah.
We're open to a lot of suggestions.
Right. So let me, I'll tell you what most towns do. And we've dealt with Republic Services for years, decades. I mean, they're all over the country. But I tell you what most towns do is they will have a person at the town or the county that will go out once a week or twice a week during the busy season and pick up all the black garbage bags, and they put them in the back of a side-by-side with a trailer on it, and then they take them over to a real dumpster. But you could get a dumpster. So, I mean, to me, it just doesn't seem like, sorry, this is all we're going to do is we're going to put out those, right there. I mean, maybe they should be across the street. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. These are just suggestions. But if it was me, it seemed like the grocery store or somebody would be using a dumpster, somewhere to store. If there's construction companies, I mean, I know Republic Services has dumpsters. Oh, so get a dumpster, and then you have that, and it probably save you money because they're only emptying one fixture once a week rather than 6 or 7 garbage cans long. These are just suggestions. You don't have to do them. They're just ideas to make your town even better. I just didn't think those made the town look better. I didn't think they did anything for you. I'm glad that they hold a lot. Those are like 60-gallon garbage cans. But I just thought, man, you're such a photographic place. It's just, that's why at our houses, we don't keep our trash can out in the front yard. So why are you as a town?
It's been discussed.
Okay, great.
There's a lot more story.
Oh, I'm sure there is.
The bottom line is, we're the only community in Montana who in 20 years has not been able to figure out how to do it.
Okay. Well, there are ways to do it. I guarantee you there's ways to do it. So that was our Thursday. So then Friday, we're moving on. On Friday morning, we decided we better go check out more than just Front Street. So we got in our car and we decided to drive around. We did see the state champions, which dates back to whenever I was alive, but it was really cool. It was really cool to see that. It shows community pride. The signs are well maintained. You're 2021. Come on, Longhorns. It's time. You got to get on that list again. But it was good to see girls golf, boys track, football. I mean, you know, and by the way, I grew up on San Juan Island. My graduating class was 30. We were a B school, and we didn't even have a football team. We had a track team and a tennis team. We didn't even have a golf team. And so I thought, man, look at Fort Benton. You guys are, and you've won state championships. And so I thought that was really nice. And those are in several locations, just great sports programs. And you're well known for it. When we were doing our research, we saw that. It shows great community pride. We also saw these signs, you know, coming down like over the river. We see a sign for the interpretive center and these things, because we didn't know where they were at this point in our couple of days here. Because remember, this is Friday morning. And then when we came in another way, we did see signs here, historic downtown, shopping and restaurants. We went, cool. So we did drive over there, and then we did see the fairgrounds. So here's my next one. Is when is your county fair?
Third weekend of August.
Why don't we put a sign there that says, come back, third weekend of August, enjoy the Choteau County Fair. Invites back. Does any other event ever take place there?
Yeah.
That are open to the public? Then you could do a reader board out there. It doesn't have to be digital or anything, just a reader board where you have sliding. You say, hey, we're having an antique show or a 4-H thing or whatever. But all I'm trying to say is if you put some kind of a sign here that says, please join us the third weekend in August, would be fantastic. Always invite us back. What we're trying to do is get people to come here and spend more money in your community. That's the bottom line of tourism, is about getting people to leave their money in Fort Benton. And so we thought, just add a sign there. We did see the canoe camp. We drove in there. It said, so it looks like you have rodeo. Do you have rodeos? Sometimes? Okay. But those would be all worth promoting. We did see the RV park. And by the way, we're RVers. We couldn't find one single space in Fort Benton that could fit our 41-foot length. And big rigs are huge. And so we did see it. It's a beautiful little campground. That's the camp host trailer there. Then we drove into the interpretive center Friday morning, and that's what we saw. And I went, oh, no. But then what we did is, that's what we saw as we drive in, but we went and parked. And when we went and parked, we looked and we saw there was somebody walking in there, and it says open there. And so we went, wait, maybe it is open. Maybe that sign is just wrong. But then we saw the sign, it's double-sided. So it's like, why don't you put the open side so when you drive in, we can see it's open. Or what we would do is just make sure that the other side is to get some shrubs or put something over it so we don't get mixed messages. But we were really glad it was open, and it was awesome. They do a great job in there. The young man that was working the front desk was great. He offered us all kinds of information. I had all kinds of questions like, what are river breaks? Where did the breaks come from? You know, where'd that name come from, Missouri River Breaks? And he knew the answers, and he knew how far it would take, and he promoted the river guides, and he promoted the different services and where the cliffs are and about the wildlife. And so we were super, super lucky that it was open, and it was great. Once we were in there, we came back out, and we did see this, which is an incredible spot. I love the metal sculptures of the Native Americans, and it told the story of the Cow Island incident. And all of a sudden, we saw part of a trail. We're going, where did this come from? What is this trail? And so we were like, whoa, wait a second here, you know. And then we loved the fact that your museums are working together to promote each other. Thought that was awesome. So we started walking that trail, going, where does this go? And then all of a sudden we saw where it ended right there. That's it. As far as we knew. So let's talk about that. Because we've been here Wednesday afternoon and evening, all day Thursday, and now we're Friday, we're getting close to lunchtime, and we have no idea we're still learning about this trail. And so I want to talk about this trail because what we knew, there's a gap between right here, which is where it comes around where that house is, and then over here by the kind of by the hotel. We did see when we were eating dinner on Saturday, we looked out the restaurant, and there were people walking in front of the hotel at the river. We go, well, it trails in front of the hotel. We had no idea. And so what happens is we came around here. So this is right downtown by the Shep Memorial. We could see it going there, and it came in front of the hotel, but we had no idea it connected through. This was on Sunday. We finally figured it out, which was yesterday. Yesterday, we said, okay, this doesn't make sense. I have all these pictures of this trail, and I got a piece of trail here, a piece of trail here. These must somehow connect. And so we saw this, and I went, right there, I went, look at that. It does go underneath the highway right there. It does go, we had no idea. There's no signage, there's no information. And so we kept going, wow. And I thought, could we do, like paint the fence there so it looks a little better? Could we cut back the brush trees so that we don't want to be a troll under the bridge or whatever? It looks a little iffy going through there. The railing on the left side is pretty rusted. We thought if you make it look better, but we had no idea until Saturday afternoon. So we're here Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It took us 3 days to figure out that this trail actually connects. And so we went in there, and of course it had just rained that afternoon. And so we went in there, we saw that, we walked under it. And then we saw the water, I think it's a water treatment plant, right? And a sign there. Then we figured out, now we know what the problem is. Utility access only. Doesn't say anything about pedestrian access or anything. It says utility access only. And so for us, it was like that. And we come right here from the interpretive center. It could be fixed up a little bit right there. It's pretty rough. But I kept thinking, can you take that sign down and put levee trail, no vehicle access? And granted, the city vehicles could still drive in there. That's fine. But as long as we know there's no vehicle, and that is the continuation of the levee trail, you just solved one of the big problems of connecting these two. Because at first, we didn't know whether that was somebody's house up there and this was their driveway. We didn't know it was a water treatment plant until we walked right next to it. And so I just thought by changing that right there, and then, by the way, if you could just improve this here a little bit, even if it's just with crushed gravel or something, to make it connect better. Now, all of a sudden, now we've connected the interpretive center all the way to this, and then we go along there. And by the way, and so that's what we're definitely trying to do, because to us, dead end. Does it look like there's a trail past that? Didn't to us. And so doing that. And by the way, some of your very best stories are along this part of the trail. That's where we really learned about the Whoop Up Trail, because we couldn't read the other marker. But we learned about Fort Campbell, the opposition fort. We learned all of these things. And by the way, look at the lighting. It was just like, wow. How many people are coming to Fort Benton and they're missing all of this? Because they had no idea they connect together. Once again, some of the boards here are starting to get a little bit rough, a little harder to read. And so that could be, maybe it's time for a replacement. But great storytelling. Just really great storytelling. And so once we walked this, we were like, this is Saturday. And then we saw the locals know about it. If we would have known, we could have just followed the locals, go where they're going, And there were a lot of people out. As a matter of fact, this is Sunday, so there's a lot of people out walking with their moms. It was Mother's Day. And so it was just really beautiful. You have one of the very best history, scenic, beautiful trails in the country, period. And I absolutely mean that. If you go from the interpretive center all the way to what we found out 3 hours ago, we were just blown away. It is so scenic. It is so interesting. It's fascinating. Even the homes, we're taking pictures. I want that house. I want that house. I want that house. So I don't know whose house we're taking here. And we just thought, this is fantastic. But I thought you need to have a levee trail map in like 5 locations that show the whole trail and where you're at. Here's where you are, so we can connect these together so that people understand this trail goes more than from the Shep Memorial to Lewis and Clark. And so, here it is going that way. And once again, I thought if we could just, this looks a little better than the other side, but just having something right there that just says levee trail this way. Just go right underneath there. And we love this. There were so many people out walking their dogs. And so we love seeing that you had those amenities. And it reminded me, in Boston is the Freedom Trail. And in Boston, they actually did this. Now their sidewalks were built in the 1700s. But they had this Freedom Trail. So you just follow those bricks everywhere. So everywhere you go, you see here, it goes there. And I thought, can we do bricks? And go, that would be pretty expensive. But this is the Freedom Trail. And so people walk the Freedom Trail all through Boston. They read the signs about Paul Revere and Benjamin Franklin and all the other people that were there by following that. But I thought, you know what? We worked in Carson City, Nevada, where they have the Kit Carson Trail. And they did something super inexpensive to mark the trail. They used blue. It's kind of like duct tape, but it's actually made like they make crosswalks out of it. So it's made to actually adhere to, and they just taped it. They just did this. You just follow the blue line and it would just keep going. You would just follow, and people all through town would just follow the blue line. You can see where it's going over there, across the crosswalk and up the road. We thought you could do something simple as just putting a colored line all along the levee trail. And we would just follow it. And then all of a sudden, we just keep following. Say, oh my gosh, it's going underneath that highway now. Oh my gosh, it's going all the way to the Interpretive Center. Oh my gosh, it's going all the way to the other end. And I thought, inexpensive. And by the way, there you pick up a trail map and it'll say, here's what you get. So you actually have the trail. And for you, the trail, we learned today, it's 1.3 miles long to a certain point. And so we thought, man, if we had this trail map and we could say, here's the marker that tells about the Whoop Up Trail. Here's the one that talks about the other fort. Here's the one. And you could have that marked all in. It would be a really cool little trail map. Because part of the trail goes along Front Street. So once we get to the Shep Memorial, now all of a sudden we realize, okay, so this goes, so part of it is on the street and then it comes around. But that's why if you did it with, when we get to the sidewalk, it's still part of the trail. Still part of the trail. And then about 3 hours ago, really, like 3 o'clock this afternoon, we said, you know what? I wonder if this trail goes the other direction. We better go over there and check that out. And so I went, now wait a second, here's here's Front Street, there's the roundabout, there's where the boat ramp is there. And I said, but at the boat ramp, it just kind of dead ends. So we kind of went around. We went to the apartment complex, but that dead ended, so we had to come back around. And then we followed the street down there. And then we said, well, let's take a first right. And all of a sudden, we're here. Had no clue until today. Let's see, so that's Wednesday to Thursday to Friday to Saturday to Sunday to Monday. It took us 5 days to find this part of the trail. And so, but this sign right here, it says, by the way, this trail started at the Interpretive Center to this point is 1.3 miles. We got a grant so that we could add another half mile. We could add another half mile little scenic loop down here. I call it the nature part of the trail, the nature trail. A half mile, so that makes it 1.8 miles. And so we drove down around this and everything to see it, and it's really pretty down there in the flats. I mean, had no clue. And I thought, why don't we have this sign? Why don't we have this sign in 3 or 4 locations? It doesn't even have to be this big. It could just be smaller. But see how it says? It says number 1, number 2, number 3. There's the old fort. There's the brakes. But it took us 5 days to get to the sign. It says, you are here. I would probably do a bigger one that goes the whole way, and shows you the different spots. But if you had that in 3 or 4 locations, all of a sudden, it's worth spending the night in Fort Benton because there is so much more to see than what we saw on 2 blocks of Front Street. We had no idea. And so I did, 1.3 miles to there, plus 5 mile loop. plus let's say the bridge is quarter mile there and back. That's 4-mile round trip, including a half-mile nature trail. That, if we would have known that, every morning we'd get up and say, let's go walk the 4 miles. Or today, let's go walk 2 miles and go down the interpretive center part, and the next day we'll go see what I mean? Talk about keeping people busy, and there's more stories, there's more interpretive displays. We just got, man, I wish we had more, I wish we would have known that. So, after all that, the interpretive center, the fairgrounds, all of that, we decided to go to the other end of town. We did see the Shep Memorial up there, but the sign at the base says right at the airport turnoff. But the airport turnoff is about 3/4 of a mile past the golf course. So why would I turn off at the airport instead of going to the golf course? And so, because we went up to the airport and the signs on the highway said it's that way, it's at the other end. And so we just thought, well, could you just change that to right at the golf course turnoff? Because when you get to the golf course turnoff, there's nothing that says anything about an airport. And the Signal Point Golf Club is right, Riverside Center, and the Shep Burial Site. So I would just, if you get a chance, if you ever end up redoing this sign down the road, I would just do it right at the golf course turnoff. You know, give them the benefit. So we did pull in there. And by the way, we did see hangars there at this end. So we know the golf course, the airport had to be here somewhere. So we did do that, but it's ahead. That would be a long walk to Shep's grave from there. And we did go up to the airport. And by the way, there was no signs, no anything. Is the airport, is it owned like by the town or the county? Is it state or private?
No, it's city county.
It's the city owns it? Okay, but it looks like a nice little airport. It looks like it's got fuel. I don't know if it has tie downs. I thought, could you add some signage that just says, by the way, we have tie downs here. I don't know if they do any scenic flights out of there. I just thought of all the places to do glider lessons, that would be phenomenal here with the uplift from the valley and the river. You do beautiful scenic. It'd be a business opportunity for somebody during the summer months, you know, where you could do gliders, where people could glide through the valley and through over the river and stuff. But right now, it's just chain linked. You don't know if it's ever open, if it's private, if it's public, if there's any services, anything. And that's an opportunity for you. You know, and, you know, there you go, glider lessons. I just thought, wow, you can do something really cool. Now, we did go to the golf course. It looks really great. It looks really pretty. And we just thought it was really nice. But there's one thing, and it had a great history. The posts now are ready for paint. You know, you have some things that can be freshened up a little bit, but really look good. Glad it told the story. But here's my question for you. Is it open for public play? Is it 9 holes or 18? 9? Can you rent carts and clubs? So there's a pro shop. And do you need reservations? Okay. Is there food? There's no signs, anything except no alcoholic beverages. That's the only sign. So if I was a golf course, invite us back. So I think the golf course, and now it could be that this is the locals. We use that. We don't want visitors using it. We know when it's open. We're going to leave no signs on there. I'm good with that. But if the golf course wants to add tourism, wants to get people to play it, it would keep us here another day. Remember, overnight visitors spend 3 times more than day visitors. I just thought, man, you can put up a sign there. It just says, by the way, 9 beautiful holes, you know, club and cart rentals, lessons maybe, whatever they offer there, just do a list there. It could be a pretty simple sign right there. I think would be awesome. Really is a pretty point. And Signal Point, is that where Signal Point is? Right there? You can kind of see it jutting out?
No, Signal Point is the one that's closest to the river.
Oh, it's closer. Okay, I wasn't sure. I just saw that point there, and I thought if it is, I had a sign, but I wasn't sure where it actually is. But what a view. What a fantastic town you have. I mean, it's gorgeous. And by the way, the trees are just now leafing out. I mean, I thought, man, if we're in another week, it's just going to be incredible. And it already is. While we're at that end of the town, we did go over, we did see the RV park. Great sign. I love the way that whole sign is done. I thought that was pretty cool. But once again, it was a little bit, probably, I don't think we could fit any of our rigs in any RV spots we could find in town. And they seem to be, I didn't know where dump stations were. And by the way, for COVID, we traveled all over. We were in 40 states during COVID in a 41-foot RV. So that's something we know about. And I thought, you know what? I wonder if Fort Benton is really taking advantage of RV travel. So I went to Campendium, which is like a TripAdvisor, but for RVers. Canoe Launch Campground, Benton RV Park Campground is that the only 2 RV parks or any RV parking anywhere in the area? That's it? They're not listed, and it's free. So we need your RV park owners to get listed on Campendium, The Dirt, and by the way, it's D-Y-R-T. It spell checked it on me. All Stays, Good Sam. There's a bunch of RV sites, and it's all free to get your RVs listed there. Campendium is probably the busiest one of them all. Great opportunity. It costs nothing to be on there. And it will tell you, Canoe Launch Campground had 2 stars. Last price paid $22. The last time somebody reported a review was in April of 2023. And it tells you, tent camping, yes. Longest RV reported, 35 feet. But there's the reviews. I travel with a 35-foot fifth wheel, long bed pickup parked on the site, blah, blah, blah. And they gave it 1 star, but nobody responded. They put down for cleanliness, 1 star. But nobody responded. Nobody's reading their own reviews of our own RV parks. And I'm not sure if the county owns that down there or who owns that one. But once again, and it tells you have Verizon coverage. It was confirmed by 2 users. But you know what? I kept thinking, how could we do increased tourism? We want the Union Grand to be as full as we can get it year round. But man, I really don't want to see Fort Benton do more hotels and stuff. You know what I mean? I just like it the way it kind of is. And so I thought, why don't you, I really believe Fort Benton, I mean, we're RVers, our best friends, we RV'd around the country with them. And I'm telling you, this would be an idyllic RV destination. But you can't accommodate the big modern rigs. We didn't see any place that had full hookups. We thought maybe you could recruit a KOA or a larger campground here somewhere. Because you know what? You will not believe how many traveling nurses we've seen all over this country, traveling in RVs from town to town. We've seen it with school. We've seen it with construction crews. We've seen it, I mean, it's a way to add more lodging without building more hotels. And by the way, RVers do spend money. But where we spend money, it's different than us staying at an Airbnb or a hotel where we're eating at your restaurants and everything. RVers, we will absolutely stop at your grocery store, shop at your grocery store. We'll absolutely go to your auto parts store. We will absolutely, I can't remember a town we were ever in where we did not need to go in the hardware store. So the RVers spend money like locals, which is great for those small businesses. And we just kept going, man, and most RV, this is like in Halloween, but most of these KOA campgrounds have cabins even. We just thought, what a way to increase tourism by having people come in and then they go and you're always churning them over. So they're going to go through your restaurants and you're not building big hotels out on the highway or in downtown or somewhere. You're just taking what you have and leveraging it. The other thing you could do is become a Harvest Host place. Let me tell you about Harvest Host. This is 9,500 farms, wineries, breweries, golf courses, community hosts. It's a place where if you have a self-enclosed RV, you can spend the night there at no charge, but only one night, and you have to be self-contained. And the rule is, if you stay there, spend some money while you're there. We've stayed at Harvest Host sites for one night where it was at a church parking lot, and we would put like $20 in a drop box. I mean, and so I kept thinking, so how many people are harvest hosts? The only one we could find in your region was Fall Tree Farm in Loma. That's it. I thought, wow, what a great opportunity for your museum to get some extra money, one of your museums. What a great thing for the golf course if they want to open it. And by the way, you can have 1 site, 2 sites, 3 sites. We go online, you'll say we have 3 sites open for an RV, and we can take this amount of length. There's no power, no water, no anything. You have to be self-contained, but you can park there one night, no charge. And by the way, there's a drop box near the museum door where you could leave. And so you always, if it's at a winery, we'd buy wine. I mean, so if you have a place for harvest hosts, we look for those. And it's a way to raise money. And these people, they're generous. And by the way, we as RVers pay for harvest hosts. You don't pay a dime. So it's a great way to pick up some income, get people to come here off the highway, even if they're driving through, get them to come to Fort Benton, because I think they'll love it. I know they'll love it. So much so that I think that you ought to do a brochure that is an RVer's Guide to Fort Benton. And by the way, I just grabbed a stock photo, so, you know. But you show the campgrounds, where to purchase propane. And by the way, each of these businesses that are on here would pay for a panel, so it's self-funding. So the place that sells, hopefully it's a place that sells propane, where to get diesel in town. You've got a couple of gas stations that sell diesel. Auto parts repair shops, the car wash. I mean, all of those things could be in here. And it's a guide for RVers so they don't have to leave town to get what they need. RVers don't want to camp in the middle of Great Falls. They want to be out here. And so that's what you could do. I even thought, could we go so far as to work with BLM, and maybe they've got some properties somewhere. And BLM, you know, charges anywhere from $14 to $24 a night, and it's kind of a self-serve. It's not full service like a KOA. But this is just one example on the Missouri, I can't remember where this was at, of a BLM campsite. I mean, that's another opportunity maybe. And we know that BLM has them. Here's Montana, they're looking for campground hosts. And these campground hosts are actually paid something to be the host there. They're paid by how many hours they work and everything. And guess what? They're spending their money in Fort Benton. So there's the RV part. Back to museums. Montana's Agriculture Museum. And I thought, the first thing I very thought of was it was so hard to read the lettering on gray, on brown lettering. That one was okay because the sun was hitting it just right. And it reminded me, I was working in Elko, Nevada. I took a picture of their museum and I said, you know what? You ought to make those letters darker so it really jumps out, so it stands out, because there's no contrast. 3 days later, they said, Roger, come back. Their attendance doubled just by making the sign easier to read. But I kept thinking, could we, you know, it's a great museum. It looks fantastic. I mean, this really looks fantastic. But I thought, could we even add like Museum of the Northern Great Plains, Homestead Village, Hornaday Gallery, Montana's. I even thought, even if you just did that, now we get that they're all under this one complex. Just by adding those letters on there. By the way, I picked the same color as the parking, the railings right there. But you could do whatever there. And I just thought, now we get, because when we saw the Agricultural Museum, we were still looking for the Museum of the Northern Great Plains. Because we were a little bit confused. We knew that home, but when we looked around, we could tell. But when we first drove up, I just thought something like this would just make it, we're there. We're there. And we've got all 4 names: Agriculture Museum, Northern Great Plains, Homestead Village, Hornaday Gallery. And once again, it's the same challenge we had. You know, I would love to go. I thought maybe there'll be a phone number on this door, you know, and there wasn't. But I could see Homestead Village, and I mean, it just looks fantastic. We can't wait to come back and see these when they're open. We absolutely love these banners that you had out here, just colorful. And I mean, it was just like, wow, like to have those downtown. Just really gorgeous, really nice job. I think your museums just do an outstanding job. My only complaint is I wish they were open a little longer in the season. That's it. But while we were in that side of town, we did see Go Longhorns. The high school looks great. But I got to tell you, we've worked in towns of 50 and 60,000 that didn't have an auditorium like your grade school right here. This is fantastic. I mean, I just want you guys to realize, I'm sure you realize how lucky you are that a town of this size has these things, but for us, it blows us away. We did see the other playgrounds and sports fields. And then we did see the outfitters out there, and I don't think that they're meant to be a retail place where you just walk in, but it looked great. They had a lot of canoes out there, and we could see where they're at. It looked very well done. I'm sure most of it's booked online, but it looked very good. It looked very professional. We're glad to see it. We did see the hospital, went there, the medical clinic, and we looked up. Reviews were good. And although this is why we'd love to see traveling nurses. I'm sure getting healthcare workers out here is probably a challenge because you're a small town. My last little side trip, starting to wind it down. Wayfinding. When we first come into town, we saw Front Street. We saw the Lewis and Clark Memorial, basically the apartments to one end, the hotel the other end. That's all we knew of Fort Benton until we drove around. We thought if you had some wayfinding signage, help us find the Interpretive Center, the fairgrounds, the library, Museum of the Northern Great Plains, the airport, those kinds of things. Be help if you had some signs around town that help us. The only signs we saw were on highways and only pointing to the Fed facilities or the county. It had the canoe club. I don't know if that's part of BLM or if that's the county, but they were on those signs. But that was the only thing on any signs as far as wayfinding goes. Now, we're doing this for big timber. Yours don't have to look like this. But we just thought if you had these, they don't have to be super expensive. Big timber, everything's going to be timbers. But we just thought having some wayfinding around town that would just help us find these things when we first arrive. So when we come down into town, we can saw the Interpretive Center, the fairgrounds, and part of the Levee Trail is that way. And then we have over here, we've got the Signal Point Golf Club, the RV park, the high school, all of those things help us know where these things are without us driving up and down. The good news is about Fort Benton, we know there's Front Street, then Main Street, then Franklin, then Washington, then Choteau, then St. Charles. I mean, that we're glad. And we're glad to know that down at the fairgrounds is basically like First, and then we go up to 25th or whatever. So it was easier for us to learn it, but it still took us 3 days to learn that part. It took us almost 5 days to find your whole Levee Trail. But once we got it, it was really easy. But something along this line would be really, really important. We're part of the Destination Development Association. We are the Destination Development Association. We do have a website, and there's a thing up there that says The Vault. And if you go to The Vault and you scroll down to product development down there, let me click on it. And these are videos. And there's one there that is, especially for museums, we'd love you to see that one. And then developing a wayfinding system. It tells you how to do it, no charge. So Joel, you just let me know, say, hey, I want a group of people who want to see about wayfinding, let me know, and we'll get you access to that. And you can see that. So I don't want to get into a bunch of detail about wayfinding, but there are federal and state grants for wayfinding signage. And you only need like 6. You don't need wayfinding everywhere. You just need to help us find those things that are at each end of the town, basically. We did go over to the library. You are one of the most bikeable towns we've ever seen. I mean, I even thought, man, wouldn't it be cool if they had electric bikes? And I go, why do we need electric bikes in this town? Unless we're going up the hill, by the Signal Point Golf Course or something. So we thought we're going to go over and get a couple of bikes. But there was never more than one bike. So we thought, you know what, if this is not really working, I get rid of it. I mean, if there's ever only one bike, and I don't know if they were just everybody's used them, if they got stolen, or if there's only ever been one bike. But I thought, well, if this is not really working, don't do it. We did see some yellow bikes down by the visitor center, but we weren't sure if they were part of this program or if they were privately owned. There was no real signage there unless you open those double doors, and those double doors are closed. So we didn't know about those. Finally, let's talk about downtown. Because this is where 80% of the non-lodging spending takes place. And this is as pretty as you'll find anywhere in North America. Seriously. We wish this was in all of your downtown. Because if it was, your downtown would be full of people. I mean, you would rival my two favorite towns in Montana are Fort Benton, Phillipsburg. You know, Phillipsburg is a town of 300 people, 45 minutes away from anything like you are from Great Falls, from I-90. Yet they run television ads in Spokane where we live, 4-hour drive away for the sweet shop. And they get people from Spokane. I mean, so I just saw this and I went, this is absolutely fantastic. The first time we saw this, and by the way, I'm going to give you a couple statistics here, but 70% of first-time sales come from curb appeal. We all travel. Have you ever said these words? That looks like a nice place to eat. We judge the book by the cover. Fair or not, we judge the book by the cover. And so when we're in this part of town, fact number 2, women account for 80% of all consumer spending. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Usually there's a guy pipes up and says, that's all. It's absolutely true. And women will go where they feel safe and where they feel welcome. And of course, Jane and I walking up and down the street, she said, we got to go in there. We didn't even know what the store was. We have to go in there. And so this is where we met Carla and her daughter, Leslie, right there. The rustic mug. And it was just great. They have a great sign on the door. I love that sign. But look at this. 68% of retail sales takes place after 6 p.m. That's from the National Retail Federation. So just something to keep in mind during the summer hours. You know, so after 6 o'clock, do we have to go to Great Falls to find stuff open? Retail? So just keep that in mind on busy weekends and holiday weekends and stuff. But that's National Retail Federation came up with that. And if we're out during the day doing recreation, whether we're playing golf, whether we're floating the river, whether we are, whatever we're doing, just walking the levee trail, all of those things. If we're attending a conference or a meeting here and we're done, is your downtown closed? So just something for everybody to think about. And then, of course, maybe stay open till 8 o'clock on Fridays and Saturdays just during the peak season. Just something to think about. But while we were there, we picked up some of Carla's all-purpose steak and veggie rub. Carla hadn't introduced herself. However, I did try to buy the clock they have on their wall, and she said, absolutely not. But we were there looking at the rubs. Carla came up and said, well, I make this rub. I just want to see that fact up there. 4 times more likely to purchase art when they meet the artisan. The same goes with stuff like this. When you meet the person who did it, you're more likely to buy it. And she told us how many pounds she used to make of this rub. And so we're giving some away to friends. And I said, can we order online? She goes, absolutely. Here's my card. I mean, this is how retail should work. Wouldn't it be great if she's going to get sales, their store is going to get sales from us long after we're gone from Fort Benton. Every retail should learn from that. And so while we're there, we did that. And then there you go. There's your this summer. I think that is so cool. I can't wait to get one of those shirts. So they showed us that, and I had to ask permission. I said, is this a secret? I didn't know whether this was unveiled or not. But that's what you're going to have next month. I just think that is so awesome. That is really cool. But we loved the courtyard. Look, this is the other day. It's not cheap to do this. But you know what? If I'm a spa owner, the serenity, the beautification, everything means a whole lot to me as a spa owner, and it means a lot to them as a retailer. this is not cheap. It's not easy, but they're doing it. And granted now, to be fair, it could be the rest of the town is going to do the very same thing. It's just that they're taking the chance it won't freeze between now and, beginning of June. But I have a feeling they're probably it from what we saw the rest of town. And so just the hanging baskets there that go back there. I mean, we just wanted to hang out there all day long. That is as good as you will find anywhere. Anywhere. Doesn't matter whether it's Billings, Bozeman, anywhere. You'll find it anywhere. We did go to Moon Eyes Coffee and went in there, saw they actually roast the beans and does everything right there. So that was kind of cool. So we thought that was a nice little shop tucked away back in there. And then, of course, on Saturday, we had to go to the Freeze. And that's it when they very first opened, but it didn't take long before there were long lines. And it was great. It was so nice to see that open. I go, yes. And there were most of these people, by the way, about half of this group that you see stand there is from out of town. I think that Wake Up Coffee does a good job with these. I'd like to see more. I'd like to see what they did up by the courtyard all the way downtown. I think they do a good job. I'd love to see outdoor seating during the summer, and maybe places do put out tables and chairs during the summer. I hope so. But overall, you still need to be one of the prettiest towns. Forbes called you that in 2013. If I get a chance, I'll send them an email and say, hey, you need to do another list of prettiest towns and get Fort Benton back on there. Because it really is a pretty town. Particularly at this end. I love all the colors and everything. And then, as we go down, we did have lunch at Casa del Gringo. And I wish they had more beautification out, but they're fairly new. And we didn't even know. I was so glad that we finally came to a Montana town that had something other than bar food. Because that's all they had in Jordan. It's all they had in Broadus. It's all they had in a lot of these. I mean, you have to go to Miles City or somewhere big to, with 10,000 or more to get that. So having Mexican food, having, a fine dining at the Union Grand, and then having your pizza and all the usual bar food was great. We had variety. We loved that. And by the way, I would love to see you do a beautification co-op. So let me tell you about that in just a second. But we went in there and it was so pretty. I love what they've done in there. I love the couch over in the corner, the colors, and just the decor. And by the way, the service was good and the food was absolutely excellent. It was really, really good. We were impressed. And we just look at it. It's just gorgeous. So I really, and then she handed us the bill and it said Pegasus. I went, we were looking for this. And she goes, well, we used to have that now, and which is good because, the Pegasus was barbecue. Well, so is Public House. Well, now you have something that doesn't compete. You have a variety. So we thought that was great. Now, when I talk about doing a co-op, we're working in Fredericksburg, Texas. It was a town of about 5,000. But in Fredericksburg, they didn't really have beautification. We wanted to put pots every 3 feet. So you know what they did is they went to a nursery wholesaler in Austin, which is about the same distance from you as it is to Great Falls. They went to a nursery wholesaler and said, we'll take all the pots that you have, as long as they're 21 inches or bigger opening. Let's see, do I have that up here? There it is. We want to put them every 3 feet. And we don't mind if they have a hairline crack, if one of them broken so that it's an odd one. They could be tall, short. We just want pots, and we want them for pennies on the dollar at the end of your season. So they went around to the retailer and said, how much would you donate? We want to put pots up and down our front street for you. We want to put them up and down for our street, Main Street in their case. And we want to put them like every 3 feet. How much would you donate? The lowest donation they got was $10. The highest donation they got was $200. Their average donation was about $40. They raised about $3,000 in their case. It's a bigger downtown. They raised about $3,000. They found a guy with a flatbed truck. They went over to the nursery and they bought $1,000 worth of pots. Then they brought them up, parked them in a side street, put all the pots in the side street, closed it off for the day, and said, merchants, go grab pots. So this merchant grabbed these. This merchant grabbed these that look similar. Right, 1, 2, 3 right there. And they had these merchants grabbed them. And so they just got all these pots. They lined them up and down the street. And they didn't say, you only paid $10. You only get one. They didn't. They just said, take them. And so this lady took these two. Then what they did is they went and got gravel, round rock, drain rock, put it on the side street, dumped a load of it there, a couple square yards of it, some landscape fabric, and they went over to the high school, cheerleaders, band, any youth, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts that were trying to raise money, and said, we would like you to put the rock in the bottom of each of these pots, put a square landscape fabric, and then they also dumped some potting soil on the side street, and then we want you with wheelbarrows to go fill them up. And and the high school, so that was another $1,000 they gave to separate organizations to do that. Because they had their kids do it, there was never one single case of vandalism, because kids protect things they take ownership of. Then that winter, if they're in the hill country, they put pinwheels and Christmas decorations, and then in the spring, they went out with a third $1,000 and bought all the plants. And all the plants were perennials, things that wouldn't freeze during the winter, things that would grow. And there was even some pots left over, so this person did a whole grouping of them. And one merchant went to the high school and had to make those planters right there. And those are just pots sitting in the planters. But doesn't that make you want to go in? I mean, look at that. And there's two things here. It's the beautification and it's blade signs. Blade signs are like the Art Co-op. Signs that are perpendicular to us when we're walking down the street or driving down the street. These are blade signs. One nice thing about these signs, notice something? Always promote what you're selling, not the name of the store. Chocolate, collectibles, trains, restaurant. Always promote what you're selling first. Even in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, it was Grizzly Rick's Market. That was it. This other sign wasn't there. He added that later. Snacks, sundries, and drinks. So that people know it was more than a grocery store. His sales went up 35%. Just adding snacks, sundries, drinks. I mean, this is Carmel, California. Those are all blade signs. This is Nantucket, out in Martha's Vineyard area, and I mean, those are all blade signs. This is Banff, Alberta, Canmore, Alberta. Love that kitchen boutique sign. Blade signs. And to make them no lower than 7 feet, no higher than 9 feet, no wider than 42 inches, so you don't end up with big signs like we used to have in the 40s, 50s, and ancient days. I mean, doing these, always blade signs. And by the way, this is Lethbridge, Alberta. Those signs are built 100-mile-an-hour wind loads. So don't say it gets windy in Big Timber, we can't do blade signs. You can. Matter of fact, the chains on these are actually welded so they don't move. And they were just putting these up when I was there. And so they were just putting the interiors where it says the residence for each of the shops there. But there was one shop in particular, right here, your floral shop, that I kept going. We didn't know whether to go in there. We weren't even sure what it was because the only sign is on the window over to the right. And if you're walking down the sidewalk, you don't see it. So we thought, man, when you walk down the sidewalk, all we see is the building's for sale. When you see a for sale sign, but you don't see a business sign, you don't know whether the business is still there or not. And they were just one example. We just thought, man, if they had a blade sign above the awning there or hanging below the awning, probably above the awning there, it'd be nice if it could fit maybe on the awning where it hangs out there. And we just thought, man, and by the way, this is a floor shop, and I'm sure they're going to make it look pretty. My guess is, because when we walked in, it's a great shop. The sign should say floral and gifts, because there are gifts. There are all kinds of home things. But we walked in the back and we were like, wow, I wish this was near where we lived. It's a great store. We just didn't know it. If we weren't doing assessment, I'm not sure we would have gone in and we would have missed a lot. I mean, you know, it's just gorgeous. I mean, I'm going, there's everything you need to beautify your town. Over here in downtown, we have this. Is that vacant behind that big wall? There's something back there? So something is going on there. How long has it been remodeled? Oh, okay. Well, I just thought, when I first saw that, I thought, wow, this would be a great candidate for a thing called trompe-l'oeil. Ever heard of trompe-l'oeil? That's French for fool the eye. I want to show you something. This here is a concrete wall building. That curve is not there. That's painted on. It's all concrete block. So there it is painted on. There's the guy doing the mural. Eric Groh is his name. He does these murals. And then when it was done, fool the eye. It looks absolutely 3D. But, you know, here's another one. I mean, there it is before, there it is during, there it is after. It's all painted on. Even the shadows are painted. You could walk right up to it before you realize it's all paint. But there's a really famous one. I came from the concert industry. One of the tours I had to manage was the Eagles. And so I was really thrilled when we got to go to Winslow, Arizona. Standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona, such a fine sight to see. There's a girl, my Lord, in a flatbed Ford slowing down to take a look at me. The Eagles' first big hit. And actually, there it is, standing on the corner with a guitar. That was actually written by Jackson Browne. Jackson Browne started writing the song, was in Winslow, Arizona. His car broke down. He was standing on the corner with nothing to do. And he couldn't finish the song, so he called up a friend of his, Glenn Fry from the Eagles. And he said, Glenn, I have this song. You know, I don't know what to do with it. You can have it if you can finish it. It was the Eagles' first big hit. But see that right there? You see Winslow, Arizona. You see the statue there. And by the way, on the other side of him is actually a statue of Glenn Fry. But over there, you can see in the window a reflection of a girl in a flatbed Ford. It was a furniture store. If you look in the right window, you can see through the window there, you can see all the furnishings and everything. And so here it is. There's the girl in the flatbed Ford. And by the way, they actually have a flatbed Ford parked right out here. So it looks exactly like a photograph. But there's the other side of it. The furniture store fell down a long time ago. But guess what? 1.5 million people a year stop there to get their photo taken. After all these years. That's trompe-l'oeil. Now, if that's being remodeled, you don't need to go the expense of trompe-l'oeil. By the way, you could do facade easements where you can put public money into facades if you give them the easement. But if you ever have blank walls like that and you want to make it look historic or anything, you can do that. You know, here we saw the insurance company. It looks great. Could use some beautification, but looks nice. We saw Prairie Rose and went, all right, an artist co-op. And so we went up to it, and it says everyone's welcome, but it looks like it's been closed for years. It's not? Does it still operate? Okay. But I thought, what a good idea to do an actual, rather than just classes and stuff, maybe they would actually do an art co-op somewhere. That would be something that would be really nice in this town. Local artisans, and it could be food things like the steak rubs, it could be jams, jellies, it could be actual art, you know. But once again, we looked in the windows and they looked like rats. And then we saw, man, this little J.J. McGraw, I think it's somebody's house now, is that right? I just thought this would be both of these would be cool little retail shops down the road. You know, we like seeing retail in downtowns, and the more you have, the further people will come. But cute little places. And I kept thinking, man, this town, it could use a home accent shop. That's one thing you're missing. And we've worked in, so many tourism-oriented towns, and that was one thing. Some of your shops have a few items, but one that really concentrated on that could really do well. The Governor's Keep, our problem with this was we have no clue what they sell. When we look at the windows, we can see clothing, but we're not sure whether it's consignment and secondhand clothing, or whether it's new clothing, whether it's women's, whether it's men's, we have no idea what it is. So remember what I said about signs. Always promote what you're selling before the name of the store. It doesn't have a lot of curb appeal. The window displays are okay. We did go in there, and it's a great little shop. Now, we both went in that side, and of course, I went over to the men's side, which happens to be the liquor store. It's well merchandised. I mean, it's really a great little shop, but from the curb appeal, it didn't really pull us in much. When it comes to buildings like this one, I mean, we saw this, and I'm assuming this is a private residence up there because it looks fantastic. But the rest of this, I wasn't sure. I didn't even know where to start. I went, oh my gosh, there's the historical sign that talks about it. And there was a cat in here. I hope the cat is okay. He was sitting in the window there. I hope he has a way in and out. Yeah. And so maybe the cat's in there as a barn cat. But we kept going, man, I hate to see this. I don't really have a suggestion for you on it because I don't know what condition it's in. I don't know whether it's salvageable, but I just hate seeing prime real estate space falling into that. That was kind of the eyesore of all of Fort Benton. So it was sad to see that. We saw the Palace Bar, not great curb appeal, but at least it's got benches out in front. We thought that was great. But then we have like plastic in the blackout window there. And I thought, why would somebody put a black plastic bag into a business? Because it is open, it is operating, but you can't really tell. So it didn't really have the curb appeal that pulled us in. However, we did have dinner over at the Poorhouse. Now, that's where we met Paula. Nice lady, small, little, cozy little place. Love this truck. I don't know who owns that truck, but I go, man, that should be out there all the time. It's really great, really nice. The challenge was we sat kind of at the back and we ordered a pizza, and then we saw that it was a frozen pizza that they put in a little pizza thing, which was fine, you know. They probably don't have a full kitchen there or anything, but it was a nice little atmosphere. The place got packed. We were there. It was going to be bingo night. Yeah, it was busy. We did not stay for bingo. We had work to do. But that's where we met Paula, really nice and just everybody was super friendly. Then we saw this. I don't know what's going to be in there, but I kept going, oh my gosh. We would love to see this have a retail outfitting store. Whether they sold, one of my favorite stores in Montana is if you ever go to Big Timber, there's a mercantile called Gusts. Gusts, Gusts. And it's a mercantile. It has outfitting. It has kitchen stuff. It's actually a mercantile. But we thought if you had rentals or kayaks or canoes or tours, electric bike rentals went off the screen there, and sales. I just thought with the porch, or I thought, man, maybe that'd be a restaurant with outdoor cafe dining over there. I assumed this was a bank. Yeah, okay. But I thought, man, this would be a great opportunity. That's one of the businesses, and I'll get into that in a minute. And so I just thought it was a great little place. Pioneer Lodge, I have no clue what to make of this. My impression is that it is low-income housing. I hope I'm not offending somebody because I really don't know, but that's what it kind of looks like. There were a lot of chairs out there, and we have Christmas lights. They're up a little early this year. And it says Pioneer Lodge in Vegas. I'm going, oh my gosh, this isn't actually a working hotel, is it? It is? And apartments. Okay, so if an apartment isn't rented, they use it as a hotel room? Well, I'll tell you, Okay, let me give you a statistic, is that when it comes to leisure travel, 85% of the leisure travelers will stay in the top 15% of hotels in terms of quality. I would not put this in the top 15% quality from what it looks like. It might be fabulous, but our curb appeal, we thought it was probably low-income housing because the signs look like 1970s. There's really, even the plant in the window is dead. Over here, we've got a sale, but nothing's open. I don't see any cash registers. I don't know what's for sale. There's no real good window displays. So for this, if they, I just think that it really needs kind of a facelift if it wants to be open to the public, because, quite frankly, we didn't even see it listed in like TripAdvisor as a place to stay. So we were a little bit surprised. So, you know what? This is why when we leave town, we have to leave as fast as we can. But I'm just telling you, this is our honest first impression. Just super honest. But I think it could be really cool. It's got lots of chairs and seating and everything. It just didn't pull us in. And right around the corner, we saw this. I would close this sidewalk. Those bricks right there fell from the roof. If somebody would have been walking around that corner, they could have been killed. And I looked up there and there was more bricks just barely hanging there. If I was the town, I would shut down that sidewalk until somebody goes up there and fix the bricks. Because that was scary. They didn't fall while we were standing there, but they weren't there the night before. And so and I saw them up there and there was more bricks just ready to crumble down. But on that corner, we saw this. It says open late. I went, yes, a bookstore that's open late. Let's go check it out. Now, remember what I said. Women account for 80% of the spending. I asked Jane, should we go in there? She goes, not on your life. I mean, to me, I cannot. I mean, the leaves look like they've been there for years. We got the blue tarps. It's for sale. It says it's open. It says open down there, but I went there like at 9 o'clock at night. It still said it was open, but maybe they're open 24/7. Not too sure. Is it an operating business? Is there like a cash register and people working there?
There's a backstory.
Okay, I can imagine, and this town has a lot of those. But then on the window it says lodging alley entrance. So I went, let's check out the lodging. I mean, and there's piles of bricks everywhere that have fallen down. I mean, is there really lodging back there somewhere?
The cat goes in and out to the left.
Okay. Well, the good news is the next day, somebody had cleaned up the bricks on the sidewalk again. But I just think that's really a disaster waiting to happen to somebody. So it's just FYI. But once again, I'm telling you, 70% of first-time sales come from curb appeal. And if women account for 80% of it's just everything about it just didn't ring true. And then finally, my last one, while I'm picking on people, is up until 3 hours ago, I would have bet anybody that this place has been closed for at least 20 years. I would have bet you $1,000 3 hours ago. But I walked by this afternoon and the screen door, and I could look through the screen door and there was lights on. It looked like an actual it is actually operating. If you were visiting another town anywhere and you're looking for a nice bar to go in, would you go in that one if that was in any other town? So you get, and they may think, you know what, we don't care about tourism anyway. We have our clientele and that's it. That's fine. But if you have enough of these, what it starts to do is bring down all the hard work they're doing up at the courtyard. Because it's the sum of all the parts. But with that, I don't know. To me, I just went, oh my gosh. It does have beautification. We have a nice weed growing right there. But, and I don't mean to make fun of people. I want the businesses to be successful, but I also want them, if they care about anybody other than their clientele, they have got to step up their game. Because it's a reflection on your whole town. So those 2 buildings that I showed you at the end there, those 3, that was, because, so I don't want you to think, he didn't think much of Fort Bend. I think this town is awesome. You have like 95% good and 5% bad. Or what looks bad, I should say. It might not be bad. Another thing that we saw was, I would love to see you swap these out. You know, they now have LED lights with plastic, so they're not glass anymore. I would love to see you swap these out with white lights and run them all up and down and have them on you around at night. It'd be really cool. But I don't think these have been working for years, because we found places where the wires were ripped apart, and maybe they worked last Christmas, but maybe you've had some storms. But I just thought going up and down Front Street, having them be all white, you could just turn them on all night long. It would just be such a cool, and they make sure you get soft white, which is 2700K, not 5,000. You want them soft white, so it would create a really cool thing. So finally, in me closing, so you want to increase tourism. You guys, this small town got $2.75 million to help you develop tourism. So what do you do with it? I mean, that's amazing that you're you're the only state in the country that is giving, and by the way, there's 7 communities getting that. Is that right?
Yeah,
Twice. And so with that, this was our very favorite thing about Fort Benton. How do you increase tourism without ruining that? Because I'll bet there are people in this room right now that are here because of that. It's tranquil, it's peaceful, it's beautiful, all of those things. So I thought, and you have such a great story. I kept saying, this is the little town with the little town with a huge personality. I mean, really, seriously. I mean, all the stories. And like you said, you know, the backstory, there's a backstory there. I'm not surprised. But I thought, if it was me and I was charged with doing the tourism here, I think what I would do is create this brochure that I was telling you about. I would have one brochure rather than a bunch of them. And I want to show you one. And this one was for Alpena, Michigan. A little bigger town, select Alpena's best restaurants. And in it, they've got this is on Lake Michigan. And I'm just going to go through it. There's how cute it says, women's path. There's a pathway there, marketplace, Myers Fashions. It's this brochure that I'm holding in my hand, and I'll open it up here in a second. Art in the Loft, the Besser Museum. Each one of these businesses was selected, and they each paid $400 for their panel. So it was a co-op, the very best of Alpena. And the Besser Museum did not have the money, but there was enough from everybody else to cover them. And the Black Sheep Pub. And by the way, this is what they did. So you know what they did with this brochure, and other towns have done the very same thing. And I would actually take a panel here and do one panel that just says 10 fun facts about Fort Benton. Or did you know the most inland port, the deadliest block in the West? Some of those cool little did you knows would be really cool. So you know what they did with this? Alpena is a population of 10,000. So you're going to do it much smaller scale. But they had 30,000 in the county, which is about 10,000 households. So in your case, you have about 700 households in your town. We looked it up, roughly. And so what I would do is I would print like 5,000 of these, and I would mail one to everybody in the county. So that's 5,000 residents. So probably 2,000 of them would be there, and 3,000 you could hand out around town. But what I would do is I'd send it with a note, put it in a number 10 envelope with a little note that says, the number one reason people travel is visit friends and family. We hope you'll hang on to this brochure so that when your visitors arrive, you will show them the very best of what Fort Benton has to offer. After all, we believe that every dining room table should be a concierge desk. Within days, people will go downtown Alpena with this brochure and go, I didn't know you were down. How long have you been? I've been down here. And the brochure would go 10 years. It changed everything. Always promote your best selves. I mean, this is one, it doesn't have to look like this one. This is what they did in Wausau, Wisconsin. I mean, you know, and you always promote your anchor tenants. And I'm even going to give you some criteria that you could use for doing. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you the list. And And always promote your anchor tenants. Now, what Fort Benton does, you do a good job promoting your museums. You do a good job promoting, okay, will this thing hurry up? You do a good job promoting, but you know what you don't promote? Other than a list, you don't promote your retailers and your restaurants other than a list. And they're where we're going to spend all of our money. So this allows you to promote your businesses and your museums. And so that's what they did in Wausau, which is a much bigger town than you have. But it just shows you a different layout and where everything is. And so sample criteria might be, number one, they should be open year-round. Because we want to stretch it to 8 months. Now, if you say, well, we're going to be open from April through October, as long as we get 8 months in there, then we'd like you to include. Now, that might be a little different for a river outfitter. So we understand there'll be some variations on that. Maybe they're open 6 days a week, 5 days a week. I mean, they need to be highly regarded by somebody other than themselves. And so like 80% positive reviews on Yelp, on TripAdvisor, on Google. There's always going to be some bad review out there, but if you get like 80%, we want to include them. They need to have good curb appeal. They should be open till at least 7. Okay, for you, 6. Otherwise, we have an empty brochure. And, must be unique to Fort Benton. So we're not going to put a chain, which, Cenex or somebody in there. And there's your list. This would be, I think we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We got 24. In here, I think we have like 14 or something. And maybe some of these people, but I think all of these are great. And I hope I'm not missing it. There's a few that you already saw that I probably wouldn't put in there. But I just think the History Trail, I think it's your best attraction. The bridge is great. The Interpretive Center, the museum, all of the Shep Memorial Statue, all of these things, are great. And then what you're doing is you're helping your businesses. You're helping them. You're promoting them as well as you're promoting the nonprofits like the museums. And then that's one thing I would do. If I was going to increase tourism, I would start promoting your businesses and your attractions. I didn't put the fairgrounds on there because we're here for things to do, not facilities. But we might put a panel in there that says, come to the Chateau Fair the third week every. Obviously, it might deserve a panel. But we didn't want to just put facilities there, but it could be one. And so doing something like that, those always help me out. Help me out. When I come here, tell me where I should eat. Tell me where I'm going to have a good meal. Tell me where I'm going to meet nice people. Tell me what I'm going to do. You got to help me. And so help us. So by this, I think you can do a great job and you're promoting your whole town. People are going to look at this list and go, wow, look at this brochure. They got all this stuff here. We got to go check it out. The other thing I would do is I would invite small clubs and organizations. Writers, I could see writers' retreats. Our daughter's a best-selling author. She makes more money every year than I make in my whole career. But she's and she attends writers' retreats, has been to them. I kept going, these are groups of like 30 to 50 people, so we're not overrunning the town. We're not having huge crowds. We can invite pottery guilds. We can invite quilt guilds, classic car clubs. I thought if you invited organizations here, smaller organizations, rather than go out and say, we want everybody to discover Fort Benton and overrun the town. We don't want that. We want visitors and by the way, every one of these would be here for 2 or 3 or 4 days. They're spending the night. We like that. Half as many visitors spending twice as much time. And when we saw that is this where the pharmacy was? No. But we heard this is being remodeled for an event space. Perfect for that list you just saw. I just went, man, if we had a space like that, we could invite these clubs in. They have a place to meet. They'd have their downtime. This place is so inspiring. Just walking down the Levee Trail. You want to clear your head. Just walk that 4 miles round trip or even just 2 miles one way. And I just thought, man, if you could invite clubs and organizations, you provide the venue, they do the work, including the marketing. Let me give you one example. I was working in a small town meaning 5,000 people, Solvang, California. It's on the Central California coast, Danish town. And I went there one weekend and there's a car show going on. I mean, the town was packed. I mean, there was classic cars. There was just, I mean, it was just everywhere. And I walked in front of one car and it said the first annual Solvang Wheels and Windmills Car Show. This was way back in 2005. So I found the guy that organized the show, the car show. And as a matter of fact, I went over to the Chamber of Commerce and said, could you introduce me to whoever's doing this car show? She goes, sure. So we went out, we found the guy, and she goes, I'll leave you two alone. And I said, so why did you pick Solvang for your cars, for your first annual Wheels and Windmills Car Show? I thought he was going to say, well, because it's already a popular tourist town. It's near the Central California coast. It's already a Danish town. He didn't say that. He said, because the Chamber of Commerce sent our car club a letter and asking us if they could host one of our car shows. I said, that's it? Yeah, he goes, yeah, it was like half a page. He said, hey, if you're ever looking for a place to host a car show, we'd love to close off our main street, and we'd love to have you in our town. What can we do to get you to come here? And I said, so did they offer you money? He goes, no. And I said, what did they say they would do? They said they'd close off Main Street and they'd put up some porta potties. I said, that's it? He goes, yeah. I said, who did all the rest? He goes, we did. I said, well, what about all your vendors? And he goes, well, we all got here. The vendors and us got here Thursday night. The cars started arriving on Friday, and then the show was over Sunday at 2. And I said, so you've been here Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you did all the marketing? He goes, yeah, we did all the marketing. We did everything. They did it all. And I said, well, how's it going? And he goes, it's going fantastic. He said, well, will you do it again? He goes, oh yeah, we've already booked this weekend for the next 20 years. They have 40 weekends of events where all they do is say, we'll close off the street for you and put up porta potties. Fills their town. Can you imagine doing it with writers guilds and pottery guilds and quilters? I mean, all of these groups, I mean, they could be even as close as Great Falls, let alone Helena or Billings, Bozeman, Missoula, wherever they're going to come from. You know how much that costs them to do? $200. Now, that's in today's dollars, not 2005 dollars. It was mailing letters out to them. So it's a popular event destination. And so I thought, well, you can develop a database of regional clubs and organizations. Here's how you do it. There's a website called Candid. And you can go to Candid and I can providing you nonprofit information you need. I can put in a basic search. So in my case, I put clubs in Montana. Oh, there's Motion, Montana. There's Chiroptimus, Whitefish Community Foundation. We probably don't want them. North Valley Music School, Montana Free Press, Boys and Girls. But you go down there and you can fine tune it down to car clubs, art guilds, you name it. And it'll tell you who to contact, where they're located. And it gives you their address, their information. And look at this, there's a whole slew of pages just in Montana. And so it's all right there. I mean, you've got all of this. There we go. There we go. Let's see. Here's Bitterrooters Car Club. There's one right there. Women's Club, Sports Car Club of Yellowstone, Classic Cruisers Car Club. I mean, these are just, there's Montana Ag in the Classroom Foundation. Maybe they would do some events here. And we kept going through. I mean, so it's pretty easy to do. It takes time. It doesn't take money. You can join for a month for $3.99 and get enough database. So for $400, if you want to pay, you can do a basic search and then weed it out manually. Or you can narrow it right down to, I want clubs within a 150-mile radius. And I want this kind of club. And it'll database that all down for you. But the other thing you could do, talk to locals. I mean, there's probably people here that own BMWs. And BMW has a magazine that is national. Then the international, then they have a national one. And then they have like Zunvold. This is the one that was over in Seattle. It's a local BMW car club. But there's Mustang car clubs, there's Cadillac car clubs, there's Volkswagen car clubs, there's Subaru car clubs, there's Cadillac car clubs. I mean, there's every kind of car club you could do. You get their newsletter. Look at this one. Reasons to visit your Canadian club neighbors in August. This is from Seattle. They pick towns that they want to drive to. Cannon Beach on the Oregon coast, pulling people from Seattle. They're looking for places. Mountain Twisties drive recap. They're looking for places to come. I can't think of a better place than Fort Benton. I mean, there's Mercedes-Benz does the same thing. Leavenworth, that's a Bavarian town in the Washington Mountains, about 3 hours out of Seattle. The cost is nothing. They're looking for places. So it was me trying to promote tourism in Fort Benton, trying to keep the serenity and trying to keep the things that I think the locals really want to adhere to. I would go for more of this direct marketing than running ads and inviting everybody in the world, because you're competing against 465 other Montana towns as well. I mean, this is a great way to do it. So in closing, I did a list. I usually don't do this. I did a list of all the things we look for in a tourism destination. And I usually don't do it because they usually mark about 10 out of these 25 or 35 boxes. But look at Fort Benton. Look at the boxes you check. When I put beautification curb appeal, it's green. That means you're partially there, but you still have work to do. Shops open after 6 o'clock. It's orange because you're not doing so well in that. If you look at how many orange ones you have out of this list, 3. I mean, we have never been so impressed by what you have done as a small town. Exterior retail space. You've got some that do it well. We need some work there. Retail blade signs. Some that do it. Nice facades. I mean, you really... So I kept thinking, well, we could do wayfinding. You've got some signs that tell you where things are, but it's not really complete. But look at the boxes you check. It's amazing. It really is. Finally, things that I think could do well in your town. Business opportunities, a home accent shop, an artist co-op gallery. I mean, you've got art here. I know it's here. You just got it. It's probably hidden. It's, it's in people's houses or wherever. Rental and gear outfitter, retail and rental gear outfitter in downtown. A 90s space show RV park with cabins. Your confectionery, you know what? I think your confectionery failed because it's on the wrong street. It's a beautiful building. I don't know any of this backstory or anything about it. I went and said, it's by like an auto. Isn't there like a body shop next door? I just went, why is it out of character? But I don't know what the story is or anything, but I thought a confectionery should work really well. If people will drive 4 hours to go to the sweet shop in Phillipsburg, I would imagine they would drive 45 minutes from Great Falls for a great confectionery. Upscale lodging, this may be mid-price. This, I kept going, do I even mention upscale lodging? And when I say upscale, we're not trying to compete with the Union Grand. We're talking about like a Holiday Inn Express or something down the road. But I'm not even so sure if I lived here, I'd even want that. So that would be on that iffy deal. I'd rather have you do smaller groups so we're never overrunning the town. I think your weekend in June is enough. And then, so I'm not so sure about that one. I thought, well, it would probably be feasible down the road if you're promoting groups and you have 50 people, but the Union Grand has 26 rooms. 26 rooms, and I don't know if there's any, I mean, you might have, what do you have, a half a dozen Airbnbs? So you could probably host, if people double up in rooms, you have couples, so you might get to 50, but you're a little short there, but that's where the RVs can come in. Even people doing glamping, where you have Airstreams that you can rent. Yes?
It's the Grand Union.
Oh, what did I say? Union Grand? Sorry about that. Grand Union. You're just glad I'm not calling it the Grand because we've been working at Big Timber with their historic hotel and it's called the Grand. I said, I hope I don't get those two mixed up, but thank you very much. Sorry about that. So, housing. Here I did this. So yesterday, Jane, while I was working on this presentation, Jane walked up to church. And on her way up to church, she saw 3 or 4 houses that were literally empty and falling down. So when I say housing, inventory revitalization, it's taking the old crap and getting rid of it. And you can do that because it doesn't fit fire code. It doesn't fit health codes. There might be asbestos. There might be lead paint. I mean, there's ways to revitalize what you have without having to build brand new subdivision. I always say revitalization always starts in the core and then spreads out. Because towns that do that, they just build new stuff all the way around it. Pretty soon the interior rots. And you have a little bit of that downtown, but not much. You have more investment going on than you have the other way around. And so I thought, man, there would be a good opportunity for a developer, somebody to buy some of these properties, because you have a great downtown. Almost everybody we saw very few houses that we go, whoa, that's scary. I mean, overall, generally speaking, it's great. And then, I even thought a mercantile would be really great with some kids' clothing. So these are business opportunities that might fill out. I would all have them on Front Street, just to fill out that where you go there. So where do you go from here? You already have destination in Fort Benton, basically the Chamber of Commerce, but you create a team that includes merchants, hoteliers, restaurants, stakeholders like the town, the county. Go through these suggestions. There's 83 of them, including this one. And remember, these are just suggestions. This is all about making something happen. You can have people, we came back, we did one of these in Big Timber, and they had us come back and do a whole plan. But this could be your plan. You know what? If we add up all those suggestions, all of them, the wayfinding, fixing the lights, the ones that the public sector do, replacing some of the interpretive signs, striping the trail, you could probably do every single thing in here for like $100,000. Now, remember, you have grant money that's there, and it could go far beyond that. We're not sure where that would go. That's where you need a plan to figure out, well, what are we going to do and where are we going to invest it? And maybe there could be some public-private partnerships, all of those kinds of things. But really, this is not heavy lifting. It's just taking what you have and making it better. Because you have amazing people. I mean, everybody we met here, we just fell in love with. Even little things like, come on, how cute is that? The little ice cream cones with the flowers in it. We were sitting there looking at houses to buy. So who owns this one? Or how about that one? Oh, I love that one. Or even down at the other tent. We just saw this a couple hours ago. Oh my gosh. All of the lilacs, just look at what you have. Every day we see people down there doing a picnic. How cool is that? Just the fact that you're a living museum with new history, old history, ancient history. Even Fort Benton up in the hill, 2022. I love it. It is just fantastic. And we are going home. Luckily, we drove here, 410 miles. And we're getting to go home with lots of things made in Montana and a lot of things made in Fort Benton. And so, in the end, here's to make Fort Benton even better, thriving place to live, work, invest in, and visit. And you are already on your way. We've been so impressed. We were so excited to do this. Sorry it took longer than I was going to. We were so excited to do this because it wasn't like, where do we tell them to even start? For you, I basically told you a monologue. There wasn't a huge, long list. And so I think what you have is absolutely amazing. And with that, thank you so much for coming out tonight. And by the way, I already gave Joellen a flash drive that has this actual presentation on it. It's got all the slides. If you want to see them, I gave her all the photography. If there's anything you want to, some of the photography of Shep and stuff, I think would be great. Put on Instagram, whatever. Put the word out there. I think what you have is amazing. And I think you've done a really good job as a town, as a county, as a chamber, as museums. I think you do a great, great job. And so thank you so much for coming out tonight. So thank you very, very much.